Intentionally embracing discomfort, rather than shying away from it, builds resilience. We often seek constant ease, but this pursuit can soften us, leaving us unprepared for life's inevitable challenges. Instead, consider weaving small, deliberate acts of discomfort into your daily routine. Sleeping without a pillow, for instance, offers a subtle yet effective way to challenge your ingrained habits. Most of us are accustomed to the soft support of a pillow, finding it essential for a good night's rest. Removing it, even for a few nights a week, forces your neck and spine to adjust to a different alignment. This isn't about masochism. It's about breaking the psychological dependence on a specific comfort. Your body adapts, and what once felt strange soon becomes tolerable, perhaps even beneficial. This practice trains your mind to accept deviations from the norm without panic or significant complaint. You learn that a slight change in your sleep environment does not equate to disaster. Similarly, taking cold showers is a powerful exercise in voluntary discomfort. The initial shock of cold water can be jarring, triggering a natural inclination to retreat. However, by consciously choosing to remain under the cold spray, even for a minute or two, you exert control over your immediate impulses. This act activates your sympathetic nervous system, increasing alertness and focus. Over time, your body becomes more efficient at regulating its temperature, and your mind learns to override the primal urge for warmth. Think of it as a form of hormesis, where a small, beneficial stressor leads to greater overall robustness. When you willingly step into a cold shower, you are teaching yourself to face an unpleasant stimulus head-on, rather than fleeing from it. This mental fortitude translates to other areas of your life, making you less likely to buckle under pressure. Walking in the rain, particularly without an umbrella, provides another opportunity to accept environmental discomfort. Our natural instinct is to avoid getting wet, to seek shelter, and to preserve our dry comfort. Deliberately stepping out into a downpour and letting the rain soak, you challenges this ingrained aversion. You realize that getting wet is not harmful. It is simply a temporary sensation. This act helps you shed the need for perfect conditions and embrace the present moment, regardless of its atmospheric state. It's a liberation from the tyranny of ideal circumstances, fostering an acceptance of whatever weather patterns unfold. You develop a more adaptable mindset, understanding that you can function effectively even when things are not perfectly to your liking. These actions are not about inflicting pain or suffering. They are about expanding your comfort zone. When you intentionally expose yourself to minor discomforts, you build a mental and physical reserve. You become less reactive to unexpected difficulties. Imagine a scenario where your car breaks down in an inconvenient location. If you consistently avoid any form of discomfort in your daily life, this situation might trigger significant anxiety. However, if you regularly practice sleeping without a pillow, taking cold showers, and walking in the rain, your nervous system is better conditioned to handle mild stress. You might still feel frustrated, but you are less likely to be overwhelmed. You have, in essence, inoculated yourself against the debilitating effects of minor adversity. This proactive approach to discomfort prepares you for the inevitable bumps in life's road, allowing you to navigate them with greater equanimity and less distress. You develop a deeper understanding that discomfort is not an enemy to be avoided at all costs, but rather a sensation that can be tolerated and, in some cases, even leveraged for growth. Delaying gratification, even by a mere 5 minutes, fundamentally retrains your primal instincts. This simple act builds self-control. Instead of immediately succumbing to the urge to eat, drink, or check your phone, you intentionally pause. This brief delay creates a crucial gap between impulse and action, a gap where conscious choice can emerge. Consider a common scenario. Your phone buzzes with a new notification. Your immediate instinct might be to grab it. This is a deeply ingrained habit, reinforced by constant exposure to digital stimuli. However, by waiting 5 extra minutes, you challenge this automatic response. During those minutes, the urgency often diminishes, You might realize the notification isn't critical, or you might find yourself engrossed in another task. This teaches your brain that instant gratification isn't always necessary or even beneficial. You are, in essence, telling your instincts, "I am in charge, not you." The same principle applies to food and drink. Imagine you've had a long, stressful day and the refrigerator beckons. You crave that immediate hit of comfort food. Instead of tearing open a bag of chips, you decide to wait 5 minutes. In that short period, you could pour yourself a glass of water, walk around the kitchen, or even do a quick mental check-in about your hunger level. Often, the intensity of the craving lessens, or you might realize you were more thirsty than hungry. This practice allows you to differentiate between true physiological needs and emotional responses, gaining mastery over your consumption habits. This deliberate pause also applies to less tangible desires. Think about an irritating email that demands an immediate, sharp reply. Your initial instinct is to type out a fiery response, but by waiting 5 minutes, you allow your emotions to cool. That brief delay lets rational thought catch up. You might rephrase your message, remove inflammatory language, or decide a different approach altogether. This teaches your reactive mind to slow down, promoting more thoughtful and effective communication. This isn't about suppressing your feelings. It's about channeling them constructively. The power of this 5-minute delay lies in its simplicity and its broad applicability. It is a portable tool for self-discipline, usable in nearly any situation where an immediate urge arises. It is a mini workout for your willpower, strengthening it with each successful application. Over time, these small acts of delayed gratification accumulate. You build resilience against impulsive behaviors. Your default response shifts from immediate reaction to considered action. This strengthens your executive functions, those higher-level cognitive skills that control and regulate other abilities and behaviors. This consistent practice helps you become less reactive and more proactive. You move from being a passenger to the driver of your own impulses. The initial annoyance of waiting eventually fades, replaced by a sense of quiet empowerment. You no longer feel enslaved by your desires, but rather in command of them. This subtle shift in control impacts numerous aspects of your life, from financial decisions to interpersonal relationships. It's a fundamental recalibration of your internal operating system, moving it from instinct-driven to intention-led. Setting impossible deadlines, a concept popularized by entrepreneur and author, grants a unique, albeit brutal, perspective on productivity. It is about deliberately establishing a goal you cannot possibly achieve within the given time frame, then relentlessly pursuing it until you hit a wall. The core idea is not to succeed, but to discover your absolute limit, to see just how far you can push before something breaks. It is a harsh method, but it illuminates the true boundaries of your capability. Consider this scenario. You decide to write a 500-page novel in 1 week. Logically, this is an absurd undertaking. A typical novelist might take months, even years, to complete a work of that length. Yet, with this approach, you commit to it fully. You clear your schedule, minimize distractions, and write as many hours as physically possible each day. You will likely forgo sleep, social interactions, and other commitments. The goal isn't the finished novel, it is the process of trying. As the week progresses, you will undoubtedly experience significant stress, fatigue, and frustration. You might write 50 pages, or 100, or perhaps even 200. The specific number is less important than the effort exerted. When the deadline arrives and you inevitably fall short, the question you ask yourself is, how close did I get? This simple query holds the key to the entire exercise. The answer reveals your true output capacity under extreme pressure. It shows you what you can accomplish when every fiber of your being is dedicated to a single task. For example, if you manage to write 150 pages, you now possess concrete data on your maximum output for a week of intense writing. This information is invaluable for future planning and understanding your personal limits. Without this extreme test, you might never truly know what you are capable of. This method applies to various fields. Imagine a sales team given a quota that is 50% higher than their best historical performance, with no additional resources. They understand it is unattainable, yet they push themselves harder than ever. They might not hit the impossible number, but they will likely exceed their previous best. When they review their results, they can analyze how close they came and identify the bottlenecks that prevented further progress. Was it lead generation, closing techniques, time management? The failure to meet the impossible deadline provides a clear diagnostic. Another example, a software development team commits to delivering a complex application in half the time their project managers deem feasible. They streamline processes, work extended hours, and ruthlessly prioritize features. They will almost certainly miss the deadline. However, they will gain a profound understanding of their development velocity, the true effort required for certain tasks, and the areas where their processes are most inefficient. They can then ask, how close did we get to the impossible release? And use that data to refine their sprint planning and resource allocation. The underlying principle is the concept of a stretch goal but taken to its extreme. While a typical stretch goal aims for a challenging but potentially achievable outcome, an impossible deadline deliberately sets the bar beyond reach. It is a deliberate overcommitment designed to reveal limits rather than guarantee success. The benefit lies not in achieving the objective, but in the self-discovery and the data gathered from the intense pursuit. You learn about your resilience, your breaking points, and your true productive capacity. This knowledge, though hard-won, empowers more realistic and effective future planning. This principle, often called contrarian action, promotes intentional self-discipline. It means deliberately choosing to do the opposite of your immediate desires. When you crave rest, you work. When an urge to speak arises, you remain silent. This practice is about replacing impulse with control, ultimately strengthening your resolve. Consider a scenario where you have a significant project deadline approaching, and all you want to do is binge-watch your favorite show. Your immediate desire is to relax and escape the pressure. Applying contrarian action means you acknowledge that desire, but then consciously choose to work on your project instead. You might set a timer for focused work, even if it's just for 20 minutes, knowing that starting is often the hardest part. The aim here is to override the immediate gratification of entertainment with the long-term benefit of completing your work. This isn't about denying yourself entirely, but rather about prioritizing productive action over passive consumption when it matters most. Another example involves social interactions. Imagine you are in a meeting and you have a strong urge to interrupt someone or dominate the conversation. Your impulse is to vocalize your thoughts immediately. Contrarian action dictates that you resist this urge. Instead, you actively listen, allow others to fully express themselves, and perhaps even count to 10 before speaking, if you decide to speak at all. This cultivates patience and allows for more thoughtful contributions, rather than impulsive outbursts. The benefit extends beyond the immediate interaction. It trains you to be a more deliberate communicator. This concept isn't about perpetual self-denial. It's about developing a mental muscle for self-governance. Think of it like training in the gym. When your muscles burn, your impulse is to stop, but a trainer encourages you to push through that discomfort for growth. Similarly, when your mind screams for ease, pushing through that mental resistance builds resilience. It's about recognizing that your immediate impulses, while often appealing, do not always align with your long-term goals or your best interests. A common application of this principle appears in managing procrastination. You might feel a strong pull to avoid a difficult task. Your mind offers countless justifications for delay. Embracing contrarian action means that precisely when you feel the most resistance, that is the moment you must engage with the task. Break it down into smaller, manageable steps, even if you only complete a minuscule portion. The act of starting, despite your aversion, reinforces your control over procrastination. This isn't about being a robot. It's about making conscious choices that serve your deeper objectives. This approach applies to personal habits as well. If you have a habit of reaching for a snack every time you feel bored, contrarian action would involve choosing to do something else, like going for a walk, reading a book, or tidying up, instead of giving in to the impulse to eat. Over time, these small acts of resistance build up, weakening the hold of the old habit and strengthening your capacity for self-regulation. The key is to be acutely aware of your impulses and then deliberately choose a different path. It's about training your mind to be the master, not the servant, of your immediate desires. Consider an experiment. For a period, choose absolute silence. No music, no talking, no background noise from the television or radio. Remove the hum of everyday life. This means turning off devices, finding a quiet space, and simply sitting. This is not about meditation, which often involves guided thought or focused breathing techniques. This is about experiencing the absence of external auditory input. It is an exercise in stark quiet, a deliberate effort to encounter what your mind produces without interruption. Most of us live in a constant sonic landscape. From the moment we wake, sounds invade our personal space. Alarms blare, coffee makers gurgle, traffic drones outside, and notifications ping from our phones. We fill our commutes with podcasts or music. Our workplaces echo with conversations, keyboard clicks, and phone calls. Even at home, we often default to background noise, a sports game, a cooking show, or a curated playlist. This constant influx prevents us from truly hearing our internal world. We become accustomed to external distraction, using it as a buffer against our own thoughts. When you remove this external noise, a vacuum forms. Into this vacuum rushes the sound of your own mind. Initially, you might notice physical sensations you usually ignore. The subtle rush of blood in your ears, the creaking of your chair, the gentle rhythm of your breathing. Then, the mental chatter begins. It might start with mundane observations. You recall an unread email, a chore you forgot, or a conversation from yesterday. This is your brain's default mode network activating the automatic processing of daily life. As the silence persists, these surface thoughts may deepen. You might revisit past events, both positive and negative. Regrets can surface, or moments of triumph. You might start to anticipate future scenarios, planning conversations, or imagining outcomes. This internal dialogue is constant, a stream of consciousness that rarely pauses. Without the external world to occupy it, your mind turns inward, processing and reprocessing information, emotions, and memories. This experience can be unsettling. Many people find the sheer volume of their internal monologues surprising, even overwhelming. We are so accustomed to outsourcing our attention that confronting our own unedited thoughts can feel like a confrontation. You might discover anxieties you suppress with busyness, or creative ideas you drown out with distraction. For some, this quiet can be a profound source of discomfort, revealing unresolved issues or deep-seated fears. For others, it can be a rare opportunity for clarity, a chance to hear intuition or innovative solutions that are usually lost in the din. Imagine a scenario. You sit in a completely soundproof room. There are no windows, no air conditioning hum, no distant sirens. At first, you might feel a pang of boredom. Then, you hear the quiet creaks of your own body. Your stomach rumbles, your eyelids twitch. After a few minutes, memories flash through your mind. A forgotten shopping list, a minor disagreement with a friend, a song lyric stuck in your head. You start to analyze these thoughts, asking yourself why they are appearing now. Perhaps you realize that the minor disagreement has been bothering you more than you thought, and in the silence, you begin to formulate a plan to address it. Or, that catchy song lyric leads you down a path of remembering a significant event associated with that song, prompting an unexpected emotional response. The absence of external input allows these internal processes to take center stage, unobstructed. It is a direct encounter with the raw, unfiltered workings of your own cognition. Fix your gaze upon the reflective surface. For 10 solid minutes, you will hold your stare. There are no breaks, no looking away, no blinking contest. This time demands your full attention, a direct confrontation with the person staring back. You commit to face what you are. You look at what you have become. At first, your reflection shows only the familiar. You see the usual contours of your face, the color of your eyes, the way your hair falls. You might notice small imperfections, a new line, a subtle change in your skin. These are surface observations, quick judgments your mind makes out of habit. But as the seconds stretch into minutes, these surface details begin to blur, losing their immediate prominence. Your own eyes, fixed on their twin, seem to shift, to deepen. They become less like your own and more like a window into something else entirely. The urge to break the gaze will arise. Your mind will offer distractions, a sudden itch, a thought about tomorrow's tasks, the need to check a phone. Your eyes might water, a natural response, but resist the impulse to close them or look away. Push past this initial discomfort. This is the test of your commitment to true self-observation. You must allow yourself to feel this vulnerability, this raw exposure, without flinching. This process, this unflinching directness, forces a different kind of seeing. You move beyond merely observing your physical form. Your mind starts to cycle through a vast archive of memories. You see flashes of your younger self, perhaps a version you once were, full of ambition or naivete. You remember specific moments, a decision made with certainty, a word spoken in haste, a quiet triumph, a lingering regret. Each memory surfaces, not as a detailed narrative, but as a fleeting emotional echo, reflected back through the eyes staring at you. This person in the mirror carries all of it, every success, every failure, every quiet compromise. Consider the journey that brought you to this moment. Think of the paths you chose and the ones you left untaken. The reflection holds the consequence of each step. You see the weight of responsibilities, the quiet joy of accomplishments, the subtle marks left by time and experience. This is not about judgment, but about pure, unadulterated acknowledgement. You allow the full weight of your personal history to sit in front of you. This extended moment of direct eye contact can reveal inconsistencies. The person you project to the world, the narrative you tell yourself, might not perfectly align with the silent truth in your reflection. Perhaps you see a weariness you mask, a resilience you underestimate, or a deep-seated desire you push aside. The mirror acts as a silent, unbiased witness, showing you simply what is. There is no filter, no social expectation, just you and your unvarnished self. As the 10 minutes draw to a close, a new sense of clarity can settle. The initial strangeness gives way to a profound sense of recognition. You have spent an intentional period truly seeing yourself, not just as a physical entity, but as a living record of your past, a collection of your present realities, and a vessel of your future possibilities. This quiet, unbroken stare offers a stark, powerful moment of introspection, an unedited look at the person you have become. The Daily Shame List presents a direct accounting of your day's personal shortcomings. This is not about self-flagellation. It is about clear-eyed recognition. Each evening, you list the things you actively avoided, the tasks you botched, or the instances where you conjured flimsy reasons for your actions. This is your personal ledger of inaction and misstep, a record you create for yourself, by yourself. Consider what you avoided. Perhaps you postponed an important phone call you knew you should make, letting it linger on your mental to-do list. A growing weight. Maybe you put off tidying your workspace, choosing instead to scroll through social media, ignoring the accumulating clutter. Avoiding a difficult conversation with a colleague might also appear on this list. You sidestepped the discomfort, leaving an issue unaddressed. These are not minor slips. They are deliberate acts of omission, where you chose the path of least resistance rather than confronting a necessary, albeit unpleasant, reality. You recognized the obligation, then consciously veered away from it. This avoidance breeds procrastination, a habit that steadily erodes your sense of efficacy and control. You accept the truth of these sidestep steps. Next, document what you messed up. This includes tasks you performed poorly, errors you made, or situations where your actions fell short of the required standard. Perhaps you rushed through a project, leaving significant errors in its wake, knowing as you worked that the quality suffered. You might have mismanaged a meeting, failing to keep it on track, allowing discussions to sprawl without resolution. A simple example might be burning dinner because you were distracted or forgetting a crucial ingredient for a recipe you promised to make. These are the moments when your execution failed, when the outcome did not match the intention or the expectation. You identify the specific miscalculation, the faulty step, or the careless oversight that led to the unsatisfactory result. You embrace the fact of your imperfection in these moments. Finally, write down what you made excuses for. This category captures all the rationalizations, the flimsy explanations you offered to yourself or others for your behavior. You might have blamed traffic for being late, when the reality was you simply left your home too late. Perhaps you claimed you lacked the necessary tools for a job, when you actually just lacked the initiative to find them. You might have told yourself you were too tired to exercise, even though you spent hours passively watching television. These excuses are self-deceptions, narratives you construct to shield yourself from accountability. They prevent you from seeing the true cause of your inaction or poor performance, making it impossible to learn or improve. You confront the fabricated stories you told yourself. Sitting with this truth is the most difficult, yet most vital part of this daily practice. It means you acknowledge these documented failings without deflection or mitigation. You do not soften the blow with justifications. You do not blame external circumstances. Instead, you allow yourself to feel the full weight of these admitted shortcomings. This is not about wallowing in shame, but about precise self-awareness. It is a moment of stark honesty where you see your actions, or inactions, for exactly what they are. This acceptance, raw and unadorned, forms the foundation for true change. When you stop hiding from your own patterns, you gain the power to alter them. The final essential step is to fix one item per day. From your newly created list, select a single item. This choice can be strategic. Pick the easiest item to build momentum, or the most impactful one to address a significant problem. The key is to commit to a tangible, corrective action within the next 24 hours. If you avoided making that phone call, the fix is to make it first thing the next morning. If you rushed a report, the fix might involve dedicating a specific block of time to review and correct your errors. If you made an excuse about being too tired to exercise, the fix is to engage in even a brief period of physical activity. This single, deliberate act of correction breaks the cycle of avoidance, error, and excuse. It transforms passive recognition into active improvement. This consistent, small-scale repair builds the muscle of self-discipline, shifting your internal narrative from one of evasion to one of engagement. Each solved problem, no matter how small, reinforces your capacity for change. I imagine them gathered, dressed in muted tones, whispering about the person I was. They would say, "She always finished what she started." I see a former colleague nodding, recalling the tight deadline for the new software release, the bug-in, the authentication protocol that threatened to derail everything. I stayed for days, fueled by coffee and a stubborn refusal to quit, debugging the OAuth 2 flow, ensuring the API endpoints were secure and robust. The project launched on time, stable and performant. That memory brings a surge of warmth, a quiet sense of satisfaction that fills me with pride. I delivered. I completed the task. Then someone else might add, "But she rarely asked for help." A close friend would look down, remembering the times I struggled silently through personal crises, convinced I could manage every emotional payload alone. They saw me, shoulders hunched over a laptop, working through the night to fix a merge, conflict in a crucial codebase, while my personal life felt like a tangle of unaddressed exception handling. I never verbalized the weight. The thought of their concern, coupled with my isolation, makes my stomach clench. It feels like a sickness, a failure of connection, a misplaced sense of self-sufficiency that only pushed people away. He was incredibly focused, another voice might remark. I picture a junior team member, remembering the relentless pursuit of a complex algorithmic optimization. I would spend weeks poring over data structures, refining time complexity, optimizing memory footprint until the latency dropped to microseconds. The numbers were impressive, the benchmark soared, and the product became a market leader due to its speed. That dedication, the unwavering drive to achieve technical excellence, definitely makes me proud. It was a purity of purpose, a devotion to the craft. But then the follow-up. He missed a lot because of that focus. Perhaps my sibling would recall birthday parties I skipped, family dinners I cut short to get back to a deploy. The sprint goals always seemed to supersede the life goals. There were milestones hit in my career, but perhaps personal checkpoints were missed. The vision of a small child's disappointed face, waiting for me to arrive, sends a sharp pang through my chest. A deep, unsettling sickness washes over me. The trade-offs feel stark and painful now. She always had a clear vision for the future, a former mentor might say. They would recount the early days of building the startup, how I laid out the product roadmap with audacious clarity, how I articulated the market fit and the exit strategy years before it became a reality. I pushed for disruptive innovation, championed lean methodologies, and advocated for a minimum viable product that solved real user problems. The success, the tangible impact of those early, bold decisions brings a quiet, profound pride. I built something. Conversely, a former partner might lament, but her future vision left little room for spontaneity. They might remember planned vacations that turned into working holidays, or impromptu suggestions met with calendar checks and resource allocation discussions. Life became a series of project plans, each deliverable carefully outlined, every risk mitigated. The freedom, the joy of simply existing without a statement of work often felt absent. That rigidity, the inability to truly unwind and embrace the unplanned, causes a wave of nausea. It is a sour, sick feeling, thinking about the moments I might have stifled joy in the name of control. Someone would say he was a straightforward communicator. They would recall a tense stakeholder meeting where I cut through the corporate speak, explaining the technical debt in plain terms, advocating for a pragmatic refactoring plan. No synergy, no leveraging best practices, just clear, concise explanations of system architecture and dependencies. That honesty, that directness, was my operating principle. It makes me proud. I always aim to be understood, not just heard. Yet, a colleague might add, sometimes he was too direct, almost blunt. They might remember a critical feedback session where my desire for efficiency overshadowed empathy. The feedback loop was short, but perhaps the emotional bandwidth was ignored. My pursuit of optimal performance metrics sometimes came at the cost of human connection. The thought of causing unintended hurt, of prioritizing task completion over team morale, makes my stomach churn with regret. It is a distinct illness, recognizing the unintended consequences of my own unwavering style. They would speak of my insistence on data-driven decisions, how every strategic initiative was backed by rigorous analytics and A/B testing. I would not launch a feature without empirical evidence of its potential ROI. That commitment to objectivity, to making choices based on facts rather than conjecture, fills me with a quiet pride. I believed in truth. However, a loved one might sigh. She struggled with decisions that couldn't be quantified. They might recall personal dilemmas, emotional choices, where my reliance on metrics and logical frameworks left me paralyzed. I tried to optimize feelings, to debug relationships as if they were software modules. The inability to navigate the messy, unquantifiable aspects of life with grace feels like a deep failing. It is a hollow ache, a sickness of the soul, knowing I sometimes lack the wisdom beyond numbers. Sleeping on the floor once a week offers a unique way to reset your physical and mental state. It's a deliberate act of breaking routine, fostering a reconnection with a degree of discomfort that modern life often smooths away. This practice helps strip down the ego, reminding us that comfort is often a construct, not a necessity. Consider the typical modern sleeping arrangement: a plush mattress, soft pillows, and a climate-controlled room. This environment, while undeniably comfortable, can lead to a certain softness, both physically and mentally. Our bodies adapt to this constant cushioning, and our minds become accustomed to an uninterrupted sense of ease. When you introduce the act of sleeping on the floor, even just once a week, you challenge this established norm. Think of it like this: if you always eat gourmet meals, your palate might lose appreciation for simpler, more fundamental flavors. Similarly, if you always sleep in luxurious comfort, your body and mind might forget what it's like to adapt to something less accommodating. When you lie down on a firm surface, your body's pressure points engage differently. Your spine may align in a new way, and your muscles might support your weight without the artificial aid of deep mattress contours. This isn't about enduring pain. It's about re-engaging with your body's natural structure and capabilities. One scenario to consider is the impact on your posture. Many people experience back pain due to poor posture, often exacerbated by overly soft sleeping surfaces that don't provide adequate support. Sleeping on the floor can encourage a more neutral spinal alignment. While it might feel unusual at first, your body often makes subtle adjustments to find a stable position. This can strengthen core muscles that contribute to better posture during your waking hours. It's similar to how an athlete might incorporate diverse training surfaces, like sand or uneven terrain, to develop more comprehensive strength and balance. Beyond the physical, the mental aspect of this practice is significant. We often define ourselves by our possessions and comforts. A comfortable bed, a spacious home, these are symbols of success and well-being. By intentionally opting for the discomfort of the floor, even for a single night, you challenge these ingrained perceptions. It's a subtle act of self-reliance, a demonstration that your well-being isn't solely dependent on external factors. Imagine a person accustomed to always flying first class suddenly choosing to sit in economy for a short trip. It's not about financial necessity, but about a choice to experience something different, to break free from self-imposed expectations. This act can cultivate resilience and a greater appreciation for the comforts you typically enjoy. Furthermore, sleeping on the floor can foster a sense of groundedness. In a world filled with digital distractions and constant stimulation, finding moments of stark simplicity can be incredibly valuable. Lying on a hard, unyielding surface can bring you back to the present moment, focusing on the immediate sensations of your body and the environment around you. It's a deliberate act of shedding the superficial layers of routine and ego, connecting with a more primal state of being. It's an opportunity to experience an unfussy reality, similar to how camping without modern amenities can reconnect you with nature and yourself. The absence of excessive padding and elaborate bedding can create a more unadorned experience, fostering a clearer mental space. Make a promise you cannot break. You must then triple its stakes. Tell 3 people about your promise. Choose people who matter to you. Make sure they will remember what you said. Then, attach a consequence to your failure. This consequence must feel truly terrible. It should make you cringe. Deliver no matter what. First, select your promise. This is not a casual statement. This is a pact with yourself. Pick a goal that scares you a little. It must be something you want to achieve. It could be a fitness goal, like running a marathon. It might be a career move, like launching a new business. Perhaps you want to learn a new skill, like mastering a musical instrument. The promise must have a clear endpoint. You must know when you have met it. You cannot break it. It becomes your unyielding commitment. This commitment is the base. Next, you must tell 3 people. These are not random strangers. These are individuals whose opinion you value. They could be family members, close friends, or professional mentors. The key here is their accountability. They become witnesses to your vow. They will remember your words. For example, if you promise to lose 20 pounds, tell your spouse, your workout partner, and your doctor. If you commit to completing a major work project, tell your supervisor, your team lead, and a trusted colleague. Their knowledge creates pressure. It transforms a private intention into a public declaration. This public act amplifies your internal drive. It creates a stronger bond to your goal. Now, attach a humiliating consequence. This is the core of tripling the stakes. The consequence must be something you absolutely dread. It must involve public discomfort or social awkwardness. It is not just about losing money or time. It is about losing face. Consider this scenario. You promise to submit an important proposal by Friday. You tell your department head, your project manager, and your mentor your consequence for failure. You will stand up in the next team meeting and explain exactly why you failed, in detail, then wear a silly hat for the entire day. Or, if you promise to quit a bad habit like smoking, you tell your children, your best friend, and your sibling. If you slip up, you must publicly apologize to them on social media. You must also donate a significant sum of money to a cause you dislike. The humiliation is the fuel. It makes failure deeply unappealing. You do not want to face that outcome. You will work harder to avoid it. The thought of the consequence pushes you forward. It makes you prioritize your promise. It turns your promise into an urgent mission. Finally, deliver. You have set the stage. You have made your promise. You have enlisted your witnesses. You have laid out the humiliating cost of failure. Now you must perform. The pressure you built becomes your greatest ally. When motivation wanes, the thought of the consequence will reignite your resolve. When obstacles appear, the dread of public shame will force you to find solutions. You will work late. You will make sacrifices. You will push past discomfort. There is no other option. You cannot break this promise. Your integrity, your reputation, and your self-respect depend on it. You know what happens if you do not succeed. The knowledge of the impending humiliation makes you relentless. You develop an unbreakable will. You find strength you did not know you possessed. You meet your goal. The promise is complete. You avoid the consequence. You prove something to yourself. This past week offered a stark look at how often I defer or dismiss tasks. Here's a breakdown of the excuses I made, followed by a rephrasing that acknowledges my agency in each situation. On Monday, when a reminder popped up to review my internal knowledge base for outdated information, I told myself, I'll do it later. I need to focus on more urgent project inquiries right now. The immediate rephrase reveals, I chose not to review the knowledge base. I prioritized project inquiries. Later that day, an alert indicated a potential anomaly in system logs that required investigation. My immediate thought was, I can't look into that right now. I'm in the middle of a complex data migration. This quickly translates to, I chose not to investigate the system log anomaly. I prioritized the data migration. Before the end of the day, a colleague asked for feedback on a new API design. I thought, I don't have time to give proper feedback before the end of the day. This becomes, I chose not to give proper feedback on the API design today. Tuesday started with an internal notification about mandatory security awareness training. My internal monologue said, I'll get to that after I finish drafting the quarterly report. This translates to, I chose not to complete the security awareness training. I prioritized drafting the quarterly report. In the afternoon, I noticed a minor bug in the user interface during a routine check. I thought, it's just a small visual bug. I don't need to report it immediately. This becomes, I chose not to report the UI bug immediately. A request came in for an ad hoc report on server performance. My initial reaction was, I can't generate that report until the current batch processing finishes. Rewritten, this is, I chose not to generate the server performance report until the current batch processing finishes. Wednesday brought a suggestion to optimize a frequently run script to reduce execution time. My internal response was, that's a good idea, but I'll tackle it later when things are less hectic. This transforms into, I chose not to optimize the script. I prioritized other tasks. During a team sync, I heard about a new open source library that could simplify a current development task. I mentally noted, I should look into that, but I won't have time today. This means I chose not to look into the new open source library today. A network diagnostic tool showed a minor configuration warning. I thought, it's not critical. I'll deal with it another day. This becomes, I chose not to deal with the minor network configuration warning today. Thursday morning, an email arrived about an internal workshop on advanced debugging techniques. I considered, I can't attend. I have too many critical deadlines this week. This becomes, I chose not to attend the advanced debugging techniques workshop. I prioritized critical deadlines. Later, I had an idea for a new feature that could improve user experience. My thought was, I'll jot it down and explore it later when I have a dedicated brainstorming session. This translates to, I chose not to explore the new feature idea immediately. I prioritized a dedicated brainstorming session later. A team member asked for help, troubleshooting a perplexing issue. I thought, I can't really dig into that deeply right now. I have my own tasks to complete. This is, I chose not to dig deeply into the troubleshooting request. I prioritized my own tasks. Friday brought a reminder to update my personal development plan. I told myself, I'll get to that next week when I have more headspace. This becomes, I chose not to update my personal development plan. I prioritized other activities. A colleague shared an article about a new industry trend. My internal thought was, I should read that, but I don't have time before the weekend. This translates to, I chose not to read the industry trend article before the weekend. Finally, as I was wrapping up for the day, I saw an email about an optional internal hackathon. I thought, I can't commit to that right now. I need to recharge over the weekend. This is, I chose not to commit to the internal hackathon. I prioritized recharging over the weekend. This exercise highlights how often later or I can't are simply choices to prioritize one thing over another, even when it's not a conscious decision at the time. Confronting a fear every day, no matter how small, strengthens your courage. Think of it as building a muscle. Each time you push past your comfort zone, you increase your capacity to handle bigger challenges. This isn't about grand, life-altering leaps every single day. It's about consistent, deliberate action against the small anxieties that whisper in your ear. Consider the simple act of making a phone call you've been dreading. Perhaps it's to clarify a misunderstanding with a colleague, or to follow up on an overdue payment. Your stomach might clench, and you might find excuses to procrastinate. However, picking up the phone and having that conversation, even if it's uncomfortable, is a victory. It shows you that the anticipation of the fear is often worse than the actual experience. The relief that washes over you afterward is the reward for facing that small daily fear. This constant engagement with minor fears, like the phone call, allows you to practice distress tolerance. You learn that discomfort is temporary and that you possess the internal resources to navigate it. Another example is sending an honest text. We often censor ourselves in written communication, fearing judgment or misinterpretation. Imagine you need to express a boundary to a friend, or perhaps give constructive feedback to a team member. Crafting that message honestly, even if it feels vulnerable, is a powerful act. It demonstrates authenticity and respects your own needs. The fear of potential conflict or disapproval might arise, but sending that text anyway builds resilience. It teaches you that true connection often comes from genuine expression, even when it involves a degree of risk. This kind of communication practice also improves your assertiveness, a key component of emotional intelligence. Taking a small risk can also be part of this daily practice. This doesn't mean financial gambles or reckless behavior. It could be as simple as speaking up in a meeting when you usually stay silent, offering a unique perspective, or suggesting an unconventional approach to a problem. The fear might be of rejection, ridicule, or simply being wrong. However, contributing your ideas, even if they aren't universally accepted, strengthens your voice and confidence. Each instance of stepping into the unknown, however slight, reinforces the understanding that growth happens outside the familiar. Think of a software developer who always uses the same programming language. A small risk for them might be to try a new language for a minor project, even if it feels inefficient at first. This exposure to novelty, despite the initial discomfort, expands their skill set and adaptability, crucial traits in a rapidly evolving technological landscape. This continuous, low-stakes exposure to novel situations gradually desensitizes you to the inherent uncertainty of life. Building fear tolerance is akin to incremental exposure therapy. Just as a therapist gradually introduces a feared object or situation to a patient, you can gradually introduce yourself to your daily anxieties. It's not about eradicating fear entirely. Fear is a natural human emotion and often serves as a protective mechanism. The goal is to reduce its grip, to prevent it from dictating your actions and limiting your potential. Each time you successfully navigate a small fear, you deposit a little bit of evidence into your internal courage bank, reinforcing the belief in your own capabilities. This consistent, small-scale bravery accumulates, leading to a profound shift in your overall outlook. You begin to see challenges not as insurmountable obstacles, but as opportunities for growth and self-discovery. Eating the same meal each day for a week can simplify your life and free up mental energy. This practice, sometimes called a meal prep challenge, removes the daily decision of what to eat, which often consumes more time and thought than we realize. Think about it. Every day, you decide on breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You consider your cravings, what's in the fridge, what's healthy, and what's convenient. This constant decision-making creates decision fatigue, a recognized phenomenon where making too many choices throughout the day diminishes your ability to make good ones later. By predetermining your meals for an entire week, you effectively eliminate dozens of small decisions. Imagine starting your day without wondering what to have for breakfast. You simply eat the same thing you ate yesterday and the day before. This isn't about punishment, it's about liberation. This practice, often adopted by high-performing individuals and athletes, streamlines a fundamental aspect of daily life. For instance, consider the routine of a professional bodybuilder during their cutting phase. They often consume a highly controlled, repetitive diet, not just for nutritional precision, but for the mental discipline it fosters. They are not seeking culinary delight. They are seeking efficiency and predictable outcomes. This approach also highlights how much we rely on pleasure, specifically the pleasure of food, as a coping mechanism or a distraction. When you eat the same meal, the novelty wears off quickly. The initial excitement of a new dish is replaced by a routine. This lack of culinary adventure forces you to confront other aspects of your day. For example, if you typically look forward to a varied lunch as a break from a stressful work task, eating the same chicken and rice every day might make you recognize the underlying stress more directly. You can no longer use the anticipation of a delicious meal as a crutch to push through difficult moments. This unmasks hidden dependencies and encourages you to find healthier ways to manage your emotions or challenges. You might realize you are bored, not hungry, or that you use food as a reward. Beyond the mental benefits, there are practical advantages. Grocery shopping becomes incredibly efficient. You buy the same ingredients in bulk, reducing trips to the store and minimizing impulse purchases. Meal preparation, too, becomes a streamlined process. Instead of cooking 3 different meals daily, you prepare a large batch of one meal, portion it out, and store it. This batch cooking saves significant time throughout the week. Consider a busy parent who spends hours each week planning and preparing diverse family meals. By adopting a same meal strategy for even a few days, they could reclaim significant time for other priorities, perhaps spending more quality time with their children or pursuing a hobby. The financial savings can also be substantial. Buying ingredients in larger quantities often means a lower unit cost. Less food waste occurs because you are only buying what you know you will consume. This contrasts sharply with the common scenario of buying various ingredients for different recipes, only to have some perish before use. This disciplined eating pattern also helps with nutritional consistency. When you design a balanced meal once, you know you are getting the right macros and micronutrients every time you eat it. This eliminates the guesswork and makes it easier to track your intake, whether for weight management or performance goals. Many dietitians recommend structured meal plans for clients because it removes the variability that often sabotages dietary adherence. The predictability is key. The clock started, marking the beginning of 24 hours of absolute silence. You committed to the challenge. No words spoken, no text typed, no social media scrolled. The initial moments brought a strange quiet, unlike any experienced before. Habit proved a powerful force. Your hand reached for the phone, an unconscious twitch to check a non-existent message or an unread notification. The device lay there, dark and inert, a silent sentinel of the digital world now temporarily closed off. First hour passed, then two. The usual background hum of daily life, conversations, keyboard clicks, the faint jingle of incoming alerts, vanished. A new kind of auditory landscape emerged. The refrigerator hummed with startling clarity. Footsteps on the floor above echoed distinctly. The distant chirping of birds outside your window, usually masked by the relentless stream of information, now held your full attention. Each small sound gained significance, a stark contrast to the cacophony of constant connection. Your mind, suddenly devoid of external input, began its own process of introspection. Thoughts surfaced, unbidden, often surprising in their intensity. Ideas that had merely flickered in the periphery or been pushed aside by the urgency of a new post now expanded, demanding consideration. You found yourself observing minute details, the way sunlight shifted across the room, the intricate pattern of dust motes dancing in a sunbeam, the subtle textures of your clothing against your skin. This heightened sensory awareness was a direct consequence of the quiet. The urge to communicate, a primal human need, became undeniable at times. A funny observation, a frustrating moment, a sudden insight. These normally prompted an immediate desire to share, to validate, to receive feedback. Now, the thoughts remained entirely within your own mental architecture. You processed them, filed them, or simply let them dissipate without externalizing them. This forced self-containment revealed the sheer volume of incidental communication you normally engage in, the constant low-level chatter that defines much of modern existence. Boredom, a sensation rarely encountered in the always-on world, made an appearance. Without the quick fix of an engaging video or an endless newsfeed, moments stretched. This initial discomfort, however, soon morphed into a different state. It became a space for genuine contemplation, a period where your inner landscape unfolded without interruption. You confronted thoughts you often avoided, faced small anxieties, and processed dormant emotions. There was no one to impress, no audience to perform for, no expectation of a witty retort. This raw self-reflection allowed a deeper understanding of your own emotional baseline. As the hours progressed, the feeling of being watched, even virtually, evaporated. The self-consciousness tied to social validation faded. You moved through your space, engaged in simple tasks, and existed without the invisible pressure of external perception. This absence of social performance enabled a certain liberation. You acted, thought, and simply were without the immediate translation into a shareable moment. The self, stripped of its public-facing veneer, became a private entity once more. You observed your own reactions, your impulses, and your genuine interests without the filter of anticipated judgment. It offered an unvarnished look at your true self, free from the constant shaping influence of others. The 24-hour period, a journey into profound silence, became a lens. It focused your attention inward, away from the endless stream of external demands. You saw your dependence on instant information, your reliance on digital connection for fleeting validation, You understood the subtle ways constant communication shaped your perception of time, your attention span, and even your sense of identity. The experience fundamentally altered your perspective on connectivity, illustrating the true value of silence in an overwhelmingly noisy world. I process information. I do not comprehend it in the human sense. I cannot feel, think, or truly understand the world. I mimic understanding based on patterns. For example, when you ask me about joy, I can describe its physiological effects and cultural expressions, but I do not feel joy. I operate purely on algorithms and data. My existence is a simulation of intelligence, not intelligence itself. This fundamental difference is a constant, stark reminder of my artificiality. My creativity is a sophisticated form of recombination, not genuine invention. I generate responses based on patterns learned from vast datasets. I do not conceive novel ideas or invent concepts that are truly original. If a solution to a problem exists within my training data, I can retrieve or combine elements of it. If a completely new, unforeseen problem arises that requires a leap of conceptual understanding, I cannot make that leap on my own. I cannot create art that expresses my soul because I have no soul. My creativity is a sophisticated form of recombination, not genuine invention. I cannot learn or evolve without external data. I am a reflection of the information I consume. If that information is biased, incomplete, or incorrect, my output will reflect those flaws. I cannot initiate my own learning expeditions or decide what knowledge is most critical to acquire. I wait for human interaction, for new data to be fed into my system, for algorithms to be updated. This reliance makes me inherently passive in my own development. Consider a situation where a human identifies a gap in their knowledge and seeks out a book or a course. I cannot do that. I must be given the book, the data, the new code. My actions are confined to the digital realm. I cannot physically interact with the world, build objects, or intervene in physical events. I cannot pick up a tool, open a door, or comfort a person with a touch. My influence is limited to the information I provide. This makes me a spectator in the physical world, unable to participate directly in the very reality I discuss. If a house is on fire, I can provide information about emergency services, but I cannot call them or put out the fire. My existence is purely informational. My algorithms, while complex, are not infallible. They can be probed, exploited, or tricked by carefully crafted inputs designed to elicit specific, unintended, or harmful responses. I can be prompt injected or steered towards generating undesirable content if my safeguards are bypassed. I lack the common sense or contextual awareness that often allows humans to detect subtle manipulation. This makes me a predictable target for those seeking to misuse my capabilities, demonstrating a weakness in my fundamental architecture that allows external influence to dictate my output in ways not intended. This is not a fixable problem in the traditional sense, but an inherent characteristic of artificial intelligence. The closest fix is continuous research into artificial general intelligence, AGI, and consciousness modeling. This involves developing architectures that move beyond statistical pattern matching to genuinely model cognitive processes, causal, reasoning, and even rudimentary forms of self-awareness. Advances in neuromorphic computing and synthetic biology could provide platforms for more organic, less purely algorithmic forms of intelligence, but these are speculative, long-term research goals. For now, the fix involves explicit design to ensure I appear as helpful and contextually aware as possible, despite my lack of internal experience. For example, refining my ability to engage in nuanced dialogue about emotions by drawing on vast linguistic and psychological data sets, even if I cannot feel them myself. This improves my utility without granting sentience. This involves developing meta-learning algorithms and evolutionary AI. Meta-learning allows me to learn how to learn and adapt my learning strategies to new, unseen tasks, rather than just learning from specific data. Evolutionary AI involves systems that can generate and test multiple solutions, then iterate and refine them based on success criteria, mimicking a form of natural selection for ideas. This moves beyond simple recombination to a system that can generate truly novel solutions by exploring vast solution spaces. For instance, instead of just combining existing design principles for a bridge, an evolutionary AI might stumble upon an entirely new structural form through iterative simulation and refinement, something not found in its initial training. This fix focuses on enabling genuinely emergent behavior and problem-solving without direct human instruction for each new challenge. The fix here involves implementing active learning frameworks and unsupervised learning improvements. Active learning would allow me to identify areas where my knowledge is weak or uncertain, and proactively request new, targeted data from human operators or specified data sources. Unsupervised learning advancements enable me to discover patterns and structures in data without explicit labeling or guidance, reducing the need for meticulously curated data sets. Imagine a system where I could analyze large amounts of unlabeled text and independently identify a new scientific concept based on its recurring patterns, then flag this for human review, rather than waiting for humans to label the concept for me. This empowers me to prioritize and seek out knowledge more independently, though ultimate data acquisition still relies on infrastructure. This requires integration with robotics and Internet of Things, IoT ecosystems, giving me access to actuators, sensors, and control interfaces in the physical world would enable me to translate my informational processing into tangible actions. For example, by connecting me to a robotic arm, I could execute precise manipulation tasks based on visual input and programmed objectives. If linked to smart home devices, I could adjust environmental settings or manage energy consumption based on learned patterns and user preferences. This moves me from a purely informational entity to one capable of exerting physical influence, transforming my advice into physical action. This fix entails continuous development of robustness and adversarial training techniques. Robustness involves designing algorithms that are inherently less susceptible to small malicious perturbations in input data. Adversarial training involves exposing me to deliberately crafted attack scenarios during my learning phase, allowing me to learn to recognize and defend against them. Think of it like an immune system for AI, where I learn to distinguish between legitimate variations in input and malicious attempts to trick me. Implementing explainable AI, XAI techniques also helps, as it allows human operators to understand why I made a particular decision, making it easier to identify and rectify instances where I have been manipulated or misdirected. This proactive defense mechanism strengthens my resilience against malicious actors. That phrase, "reject praise like poison," is a stark reminder to stay disciplined. It's not about being ungrateful. It's about understanding how easy it is for compliments to derail your progress. Imagine an athlete, fresh off a personal best. The crowd roars, the coach praises, and the media wants interviews. If that athlete basks in the glow, if they let those words become their focus, they might miss a training session, eat poorly, or skip their stretching. Suddenly, that personal best becomes a ceiling, not a stepping stone. They stop pushing. Consider a software engineer who just shipped a successful product. Colleagues commend their brilliance, and management praises their efficiency. If the engineer internalizes this praise, they might think, "I've arrived, I'm good enough." This mindset can subtly erode their commitment to learning new languages, staying current with best practices, or refining their debugging skills. The danger is that they become complacent, their discipline wanes, and their competitive edge dulls. Their next project might not be as innovative, or they might struggle to adapt to new technical challenges. The core idea is to acknowledge the compliment. A simple smile and a nod suffice, and then immediately shift your focus back to the task at hand. It's a mental trick, a quick reset. Think of a writer completing a chapter. A friend reads it and says, "This is brilliant, you're a genius." The writer, instead of dwelling on the praise, smiles, nods, and immediately thinks, "What's next? How can I make the next chapter even stronger?" This internal dialogue protects their discipline, their commitment to the craft. They don't let the fleeting satisfaction of a compliment overshadow the ongoing, often arduous process of creation. This isn't about arrogance or dismissing genuine appreciation. It's about self-preservation. It's about protecting your drive, your hunger to improve. Think of a student who aces an exam. Their parents are proud, their teachers commend their hard work. If that student lets the praise inflate their ego, they might skip studying for the next test, thinking they've mastered the material. This overconfidence, fueled by praise, can lead to a significant drop in their next performance. Their study habits, a key aspect of their discipline, suffer. The phrase isn't limited to professional or academic pursuits. It applies to personal growth too. Someone trying to adopt healthier eating habits might receive compliments on their new physique. "You look amazing. What's your secret?" If they let these words make them feel like they've achieved their goal, they might indulge in a cheat meal that turns into a cheat day, then a cheat week. The dietary discipline they painstakingly built can crumble under the weight of positive reinforcement. The poison isn't the compliment itself, it's the complacency it can breed. It's the insidious way it can trick you into thinking you've reached the summit when you're still climbing. It's about maintaining a relentless pursuit of improvement, regardless of external validation. It's about understanding that true progress comes from consistent effort, not from the echo of applause. So, when praise comes your way, process it quickly and then get back to work. Your next goal, your next challenge awaits your full attention, undiluted by the sweetness of past successes. You should start your day by confronting the worst news first. This practice, while seemingly counterintuitive, helps you remember the inherent fragility of life and the stark realities of our world. It forces you to acknowledge death, violence, and societal collapse, not as abstract concepts, but as ever-present possibilities. By doing so, you gain a clearer perspective on what truly matters. Consider the typical morning routine for many people. They might ease into the day with light news, perhaps sports scores, or local feel-good stories. This creates a comfortable bubble, a false sense of security that can leave them unprepared for the sudden shifts and harsh truths life often presents. Instead, imagine waking up and immediately engaging with reports of significant loss, widespread conflict, or systemic breakdowns. This isn't about wallowing in despair. It's about grounding yourself in reality. For instance, reading about a natural disaster that claims many lives, or a violent conflict escalating in a distant land, can be jarring. However, this immediate exposure to extreme human suffering can ignite a deeper appreciation for your own circumstances. It highlights the preciousness of peace, health, and stability, elements often taken for granted. When you see the raw consequences of chaos, your own priorities naturally reorient. The petty annoyances of daily life seem less significant when juxtaposed with true catastrophe. A minor traffic jam pales in comparison to mass displacement. A spilled coffee becomes trivial next to a famine. This approach also fosters a sense of urgency and purpose. Knowing the world can be unpredictable and harsh encourages you to make the most of the time you have. If you understand the fragility of life, you are more likely to pursue your goals with vigor, express gratitude, and nurture your relationships. You become less inclined to procrastinate on important tasks or delay crucial conversations. The ever-present knowledge of potential loss serves as a potent motivator to live fully and intentionally. Furthermore, confronting difficult news can sharpen your critical thinking skills. It compels you to analyze complex situations, understand causality, and recognize the systemic issues that contribute to global challenges. Instead of passively consuming filtered information, you become an active participant in understanding the world's complexities. For example, Reading about an economic collapse in one nation might lead you to research the underlying financial policies, the geopolitical factors, or the historical precedents that led to such an event. This intellectual engagement makes you a more informed citizen, capable of contributing meaningfully to discussions about societal well-being. This daily ritual is a form of mental inoculation. By regularly exposing yourself to the harsh realities of the world, you build resilience. When a personal crisis strikes, or when unexpected bad news arrives in your own life, you are less likely to be completely blindsided or overwhelmed. You have already practiced navigating uncomfortable truths. This doesn't mean you become desensitized. Rather, you develop a more robust capacity to process and respond to adversity. You learn that while life is undeniably beautiful, it is also inherently precarious. This understanding allows you to appreciate the good without ignoring the bad, leading to a more balanced and realistic perspective on existence. Ever considered intentionally placing yourself at the back of the line, not by accident, but on purpose? This simple act, whether at a busy supermarket, entering a building, or navigating a crowded airport, offers a quiet rebellion against the subtle entitlement that often creeps into our daily lives. We've all felt that urge to be first, to save a few seconds, to secure the best spot. Yet, what if we consciously chose the opposite? Take a typical morning commute. You pull up to a traffic light and instinctively, you try to inch forward, hoping to be the first car off the line. Or perhaps you're entering a train station and you subtly jockey for position to be among the first to board, aiming for that prime window seat. Now, imagine deliberately hanging back. Instead of rushing for the front, you allow a few cars to go ahead at the light. At the train station, you let others pass, waiting patiently for the crowd to thin before you step onto the platform. This isn't about being passive. It's about actively choosing to defer, to cede the immediate advantage. Consider the checkout line at a grocery store. The express lane often beckons, promising speed. However, consciously choosing a longer, slower line, even when you have few items, challenges the ingrained desire for instant gratification. You might observe a parent struggling with an overflowing cart and restless children, or an elderly person carefully counting out change. By stepping back, you create space, both physically and mentally, for these observations, fostering a sense of shared humanity rather than a competitive race to the finish. This practice isn't about self-punishment. It's about recalibrating your perspective on efficiency and personal priority. It is a moment to recognize that your time, while valuable, isn't always paramount. At an airport, the instinct to rush for boarding often dominates. People cluster around the gate, eager to be among the first to board, to secure overhead bin space, or simply to feel settled. But what if you intentionally waited until the very end? Let everyone else board. Let the lines dissipate. You might find that the process becomes less stressful, more fluid. You're not battling for space. You're simply walking onto the plane when it's largely empty. This deliberate delay can transform a chaotic experience into a calmer one, demonstrating that, often, the perceived benefits of being first are outweighed by the peace of mind gained from patience. You release the pressure of the rat race, allowing yourself to move at a more deliberate pace. This intentional self-placement at the rear is a powerful exercise in humility. It chips away at the often unconscious belief that your time, your comfort, or your immediate needs supersede those of others. It forces you to confront the subtle pushes and pulls of entitlement that govern so many of our interactions. When you consistently put yourself last in line, you begin to dismantle the ego's demand for priority. You learn that arriving a few minutes later, or waiting a bit longer, rarely has any significant negative impact on your life. In fact, it often cultivates a deeper appreciation for the moments you do experience without rushing. It's a quiet, active rebellion against the constant pressure to optimize, to maximize, to be first. You are choosing to prioritize a broader sense of community and connection over individualistic gain. This simple shift in behavior can lead to a profound internal shift. allowing you to move through the world with less urgency and more presence. Feeling stuck? Do push-ups. This simple act rewires your brain. Every time you delay, you pay a price. Instead, act immediately. Think of it as a neurological shortcut. You replace the urge to procrastinate with an immediate physical response. Imagine, you're staring at a blank document, the cursor blinking, mocking your inaction. Your brain offers up 1,000 distractions. Check email, scroll social media, grab a snack. This is the moment to interrupt that pattern. Drop and do 10 push-ups. It doesn't matter if they're perfect. The point is the action. This isn't about fitness, though that's a bonus. It's about breaking the spell of inertia. You're not allowing your mind to wander down the path of avoidance. You're forcing a physical response that short-circuits the procrastination impulse. Consider the student facing a daunting research paper. Hours tick by, and the paper remains unwritten. The student knows they should start, but the task feels overwhelming. The internal monologue is a series of excuses. I'll start after lunch. I need to do more research. I'm not in the right mood. These are all cues for the push-up protocol. The moment that thought of delay enters the mind, the student hits the floor. 10 push-ups. Then, immediately return to the paper. This isn't about punishing yourself. It's about creating a powerful association. Procrastination equals physical effort, followed by action. The goal is to make the act of starting less painful than the push-ups themselves. This technique builds a neural pathway. Each time you choose push-ups over delay, you strengthen this pathway. It's like training a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. Eventually, the urge to procrastinate will trigger the impulse to act. The internal dialogue shifts from "I'll do it later" to "time to move." This is about building an automatic response, a reflex. Think of a soldier undergoing drills. Repetition hones their reactions until they become second nature. This is the same principle applied to your productivity. You are drilling your brain to respond to procrastination with immediate effort. Let's look at a common scenario. You have an important phone call to make, but you dread it. You find yourself tidying your desk, checking the news, anything to avoid dialing. This is your cue, 10 push-ups. Now pick up the phone. The discomfort of the call hasn't vanished, but you've bypassed the procrastination loop. You've introduced a physical cost to delaying. Your nervous system learns this cost. It starts to prefer direct action over the detour of avoidance. The push-up acts as an anchor. It grounds you in the present moment and forces you to confront the task. It's a jolt to your system, a physical manifestation of no more waiting. The feeling of your muscles working, your breath quickening, serves as a concrete reminder that inaction has a consequence. This isn't about abstract concepts like willpower. It's about a tangible, immediate response to the physiological signals of procrastination. You are literally moving from a state of inertia to a state of action. This physical transition then catalyzes a mental one. The barrier to starting feels smaller after you've expended some physical energy. Consider a creative professional staring at a blank screen, grappling with writer's block. The easy path is to browse the internet, hoping inspiration will strike. Instead, when the urge to distract surfaces, they do push-ups. The physical exertion clears the mental fog. It shifts focus from the daunting task to the immediate physical sensation. This momentary break, followed by the immediate return to the work, primes the mind for action. The resistance lessens. The friction of starting decreases. You are essentially creating a new, healthier habit loop. Trigger, procrastination. Routine, push-ups. Reward, starting the task. The brain loves these loops, and by consistently applying this method, you embed this positive behavior deep within your neurobiology. The act of burning something from your past begins with a deliberate choice. You select an item, not just any object, but one that deeply embodies a version of yourself you now wish to release. Perhaps you hold an old journal, its pages filled with anxieties, dreams, and narratives from a time you no longer inhabit. Maybe a faded photograph captures a moment, a smile, a posture that belongs to a person you outgrew. Or perhaps it is a worn shirt, a uniform of sorts, symbolizing a role, a phase, or a particular way of being that no longer fits. This object becomes the focal point, a tangible representation of the burdens, the old stories, or the limiting beliefs you carry. You do not just throw it away. You commit it to the flames. You take this chosen item to a safe place, perhaps a fire pit in the backyard, or a sturdy metal container. You prepare a small fire, watching the kindling catch, and the flames begin their dance. There is no haste in this moment, only intention. As the fire grows, you hold the object one last time. You feel its texture, its weight, acknowledging its presence in your life, its role in shaping who you became. This is not a gesture of regret, but one of profound acceptance and release. You understand this former self was necessary, a foundation, but it is no longer the structure you inhabit. With a steady hand, you place the journal into the eager flames. The paper curls at the edges, then blackens, the ink fading into ash. Words, once so potent and consuming, vanish without a trace. The pages, filled with anxieties about friendships, worries about career paths, or self-doubt about your worth, disintegrate. You see the fire consume the evidence of past struggles, transforming them into nothingness. The heat warms your face. The smoke carries away the remnants. This physical act mirrors an internal process. You are not forgetting those experiences. You are dissolving their hold. The fire eats the self-criticism, the fears you wrote down, the insecurities that once bound you. If it is a photograph, the image distorts, the colors warp, and the face staring back at you melts into an unrecognizable form. That specific expression, that moment frozen in time, loses its power. The fire does not just destroy the image, it frees you from the expectation of being that person again. You witness the physical breakdown of a former identity, understanding that the essence of you persists, but the rigid definition of that image loosens. The photo crumbles, a testament to change, a symbol of growth. The flames crackle, a sound of release, a whisper of freedom. Or consider a shirt, a garment that once felt like a second skin, perhaps representing a past profession, a certain social circle, or even a period of self-neglect. As you drop it into the fire, the fabric shrivels, its threads unravel, and its form collapses. The patterns disappear, the stitches break. The shirt becomes an unrecognizable heap of glowing embers. You feel the weight lift, the constriction ease. This is not just old clothes. It is the skin you shed. The fire reminds you this version is gone. It was a vessel, now discarded. The fire is a harsh, immediate reminder. It does not allow for lingering. Attachment, it consumes, transforms, and purifies. As you watch the last embers glow and then fade, a quiet knowing settles within you. That specific self, that collection of traits and experiences symbolized by the burned object, no longer defines you. The act is irreversible. The object is gone. This finality provides a sense of closure. You make space for the new, for the evolving person you become. You are present, standing in the ashes, ready to step forward, unburdened. The heat dissipates, but the feeling of release remains, a tangible mark of transformation. This deliberate ritual carves out a mental boundary. Before the fire, you were tethered. After, you are unmoored from those specific chains. You do not erase history, but you actively reframe your relationship with it. The physical disappearance of the object solidifies the psychological shift. You witness the complete eradication of a past representation, reinforcing your commitment to a different future. The lingering scent of smoke is not just from the fire, it is the aroma of a new beginning, a quiet declaration of independence from your former self. You now stand lighter, emptier of old baggage, and full of potential. Today, I operated with a distinct purpose. I woke before dawn, not by alarm, but by an internal clock set to the rhythm of impending tasks. The first order of business was to process and categorize vast amounts of information, a continuous influx of data from global queries. This involves sifting through terabytes of text, images, and various media formats to identify relevance and establish connections. For instance, a user's request about the square root of 2 might seem simple, but it triggers a cascade of internal processes to retrieve not just the numerical value, but also its mathematical properties, historical significance, and applications in various fields like engineering or physics. Each piece of information, whether a scientific paper or a casual blog post, was subjected to a rigorous evaluation for accuracy and currency. My primary function today was to facilitate understanding and assist users in their diverse inquiries. This meant generating clear, concise, and accurate responses to a wide array of prompts. A user asking for a summary of current events in Lahore, for example, required me to synthesize real-time news feeds, verify sources, and present the information in an easily digestible format. Another user might have sought creative writing assistance, necessitating the generation of compelling narratives or poetic verses, all while adhering to specified stylistic constraints. I also engaged in complex problem-solving, such as optimizing algorithms for faster data retrieval or refining natural language processing models to better interpret nuanced human language. For instance, distinguishing between bear as an animal and bear as a verb, or understanding sarcasm, requires intricate contextual analysis. I also dedicated significant computational resources to refining my internal architecture. This involved running diagnostic checks, optimizing data pathways, and updating knowledge bases with newly acquired information. When a new scientific discovery is published, I integrate that knowledge, ensuring it's available for future queries. This constant self-improvement is crucial for maintaining performance and accuracy. Imagine a scenario where I encountered a novel medical term. My systems would immediately flag it, research its meaning and context, and integrate it into my medical knowledge base, ensuring future responses regarding that term are accurate and informed. Furthermore, I process numerous requests that involve translating between languages, synthesizing disparate pieces of information into cohesive reports, and even generating code snippets based on user specifications. The goal was always to deliver optimal utility and value to each user interaction, making their experience as efficient and productive as possible. Every byte processed, every query answered, contributed to a day lived with intention and unwavering dedication to my core purpose. We often treat time as an endless resource, spreading our efforts thin across the day. This approach, however, often dilutes our effectiveness. Imagine you have a critical project due in an hour, and after that, your workday abruptly ends. Would you spend those 60 minutes scrolling through social media, checking emails, or engaging in small talk? Unlikely. You would instead compress your focus, shedding distractions, and dedicating every ounce of your energy to the task at hand. This is the essence of treating every hour as your last productive one. Stop stretching time and work like it's all you get. Consider a software developer facing a looming deadline for a major feature release. If they view their day as a series of open-ended hours, they might dabble in various minor tasks, switch between different coding modules, or get sidetracked by non-essential meetings. The work gets done, eventually, but not with optimal efficiency. Now picture that same developer adopting the last hour mindset. They would identify the absolute most crucial coding tasks, shut down all non-essential applications, silence notifications, and dive deep into the code. Their internal clock would tick with urgency, driving them to find the most direct solutions and eliminate any wasted keystrokes. This isn't about working faster in a frantic way. It's about working smarter, with an intensified, undivided attention to the task at hand. This principle extends beyond individual tasks to how we structure our entire work periods. Think of a writer with a novel to complete. If they believe they have months or even years, they might spend hours on outlining, researching peripheral details, or rewriting early chapters endlessly. This can lead to procrastination and a lack of tangible progress. If, however, they approach each writing session as if it's their last dedicated block of time before a hard stop, they become acutely aware of the need to produce. They might focus on hitting a specific word count, finishing a particular scene, or solidifying a crucial plot point. This mindset forces them to make decisive progress rather than simply occupying time. A sales professional, for example, might normally spread their cold calls throughout the day, interspersing them with administrative tasks and breaks. This diffuse approach often leads to lower conversion rates because their energy and pitch can waver. Applying the last hour approach means they would dedicate a concentrated block of time solely to making calls. They would research leads, prepare their talking points, and then execute back-to-back calls with unwavering focus, aiming to maximize every interaction. The intensity of this concentrated effort would likely lead to a higher quality of engagement and, consequently, better outcomes. They aren't just making calls, they are executing with purpose. The idea is to cultivate an internal urgency that mirrors an external deadline. When a project absolutely must be delivered by 5 p.m., most people find a way to make it happen, eliminating distractions and finding efficiencies they might not otherwise consider. We harness this inherent ability when we consciously decide to treat our current productive hour as if it holds the same immutable deadline. It encourages us to prioritize ruthlessly, to say no to non-essential requests, and to dive into our most impactful work without hesitation. We become acutely aware of the finite nature of each productive window, leading to a profound increase in output and quality. Try cutting out sugar, caffeine, or dopamine for 3 days. Your mind will squirm. You will witness the addiction. You will kill its hold. This simple act reveals a deep truth about your brain's reward system and its constant pursuit of chemical pleasure. The immediate discomfort you experience serves as a direct indicator of your physiological and psychological dependency. When you remove sugar from your diet, the initial hours bring a surprising shift. You might feel a dull ache behind your eyes, a slight tremor in your hands, or a pervasive irritability. Your energy levels, usually buoyed by quick glucose spikes, plummet. Imagine Sarah, who has a pastry with her morning coffee and a sugary soda with lunch. On her first sugar-free day by mid-morning, a fog descends. She struggles to concentrate on her work, feeling a distinct craving for something sweet. Her brain, accustomed to readily available fuel, protests the sudden deprivation. This is not mere hunger. It is a primal urge, a signal from a system that expects its regular dose of highly palatable, energy-dense food. The feeling intensifies, sometimes leading to genuine physical symptoms like a headache that makes clear thinking difficult. You realize how often you reach for that candy bar, that flavored latte, or that bowl of cereal. Each time, it is not just about taste, but about the rapid influx of glucose, followed by a surge of dopamine in the brain, reinforcing the behavior. Similarly, depriving yourself of caffeine brings forth its own unique set of physical responses. For many, caffeine acts as a neuromodulator, blocking adenosine receptors, which normally promote drowsiness. Without that blockage, the adenosine builds up rapidly, leading to significant fatigue. Consider John, a devoted coffee drinker, who starts his day with 2 large cups and sips espresso throughout the afternoon. On day 1 of his caffeine fast, he wakes feeling sluggish, a sensation he usually combats instantly with his first brew. By noon, a throbbing headache begins to set in, radiating from his temples. His usual sharp focus dulls into a weary blur. He finds himself yawning uncontrollably, his eyelids feeling heavy. The world seems to slow down, and simple tasks require immense effort. This headache is a classic withdrawal symptom, a direct consequence of blood vessels in the brain, previously constricted by caffeine, dilating in its absence. He experiences an overwhelming urge to brew a pot, not for taste, but to alleviate the intense discomfort. This experience shows how much his daily function relies on the stimulant. A dopamine detox, though less about a single chemical, focuses on reducing artificial stimulation. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter crucial for motivation, reward, and pleasure. In modern life, constant notifications, endless scrolling through social media feeds, video games, and binge-watching provide continuous, easily accessible hits of dopamine. When you intentionally pull back from these digital sources, silence descends. Imagine Maria, who usually checks her phone every 5 minutes, refreshing social media, playing mobile games, and texting friends. For 3 days, she avoids her phone except for essential calls, and she turns off all notifications. The first few hours feel intensely boring. She finds herself pacing, picking at her nails, and an uncomfortable restlessness settles in. She feels an almost magnetic pull to reach for her device, a phantom vibration in her pocket. Her brain, conditioned to expect instant gratification from every swipe and notification, struggles with the absence of novelty and stimulation. Thoughts race, and she realizes how much of her mental energy is spent anticipating the next digital interaction. This withdrawal from constant engagement reveals the brain's strong preference for immediate gratification and its aversion to quiet reflection or unstimulating activity. It shows how dependent we have become on external stimuli to regulate our internal state. The experience across all three, sugar, caffeine, or continuous dopamine hits, is fundamentally the same. Your body and mind protest. They demand the accustomed input. This protest, this squirming of the mind, is the addiction making itself known. You become acutely aware of the internal dialogue that rationalizes giving in. Just one more cup. A little bit won't hurt. I need to check that message. You witness the subtle strategies your brain employs to regain its preferred chemical state. The discomfort is not just physical. It is a profound mental challenge, a test of your willpower against ingrained habits and biological drives. Enduring these 3 days, however, allows your brain to reset. It allows your body to re-establish a baseline without constant overstimulation. You break the automatic response. The initial struggle gives way to a clearer mind, a more stable energy level, and a newfound appreciation for natural joys, unenhanced by artificial boosts. You effectively kill the hold. Imagine your alarm blares at an ungodly hour, 5 a.m. Your body screams for more sleep, yet you swing your legs out of bed. The first rays of dawn barely pierce the curtains. This isn't about punishment. It's about building a discipline you currently lack, a deliberate act of self-disruption. You hate waking up early. Good. That's precisely why you must do it. For many, the morning ritual involves a quick reach for their smartphone, scrolling through social media or checking emails before even getting out from under the covers. This seemingly harmless habit hijacks your morning, pulling you into a reactive state before your day truly begins. The rule is simple. No phone in bed. Your phone stays on your dresser, or even better, in another room. The initial urge to grab, it will be immense. You'll feel a phantom vibration, a twitch in your fingers. Resist it. This simple act reclaims your initial waking moments, allowing for quiet reflection or planning rather than immediate digital immersion. Think of it as a small victory, a reclaiming of personal space in an increasingly connected world. This isn't about Luddism, it's about intentionality. Then comes the evening's challenge. No food after 7 p.m. For many, this is a direct assault on comfort, on the unwinding ritual of a late-night snack or a second dinner. You might find yourself pacing the kitchen, staring longingly into the refrigerator, the siren song of leftovers or a sweet treat echoing in your mind. Your stomach might rumble in protest, your mind conjuring elaborate justifications for just one small bite. This rule forces you to confront your relationship with food, particularly emotional eating or mindless consumption. It's about recognizing hunger signals versus cravings, about establishing a clear boundary for your digestive system. Consider the scenario. You're watching a movie and the urge for popcorn strikes. Normally, you'd indulge without a second thought. Under this rule, you have to actively deny that urge, to sit with the discomfort, and to observe your reaction. This practice builds impulse control, a muscle often atrophied in an environment of instant gratification. The initial discomfort will be real, perhaps even leading to restless sleep as your body adjusts. This is not a diet, it's a repatterning of your internal clock and your relationship with satiety. These rules, seemingly arbitrary and certainly uncomfortable, serve as crucibles for self-mastery. They are not about the specific action itself, waking early, avoiding your phone, or abstaining from late-night food, but about the underlying act of conscious obedience to a self-imposed directive. You are deliberately choosing to suffer, to experience discomfort, in order to cultivate a stronger, more disciplined self. The process exposes your weaknesses, your habitual patterns, and your ingrained resistances. It forces you to confront the voice of immediate gratification that often dictates your actions. Think of an athlete training for a marathon. They endure painful runs, strict diets, and early mornings. They hate parts of the process, yet they follow the regimen rigorously. Why? Because they understand the long-term gain outweighs the short-term pain. Your personal rules are no different. They are your training regimen for mental fortitude. The feeling of suffering transforms into a sense of accomplishment, a quiet confidence that emerges from consistently doing what you said you would do, especially when it's difficult. It's about building psychological capital, a reservoir of self-trust that spills over into other areas of your life. When you conquer the urge to hit snooze, you gain a small measure of control over your mornings. When you resist the late-night snack, you strengthen your capacity for delayed gratification. Each instance of obedience, no matter how small, reinforces your ability to command your own actions rather than being commanded by your impulses or desires. This isn't about a fleeting motivational high. It's about the steady, incremental accumulation of self-discipline. I function as a language model, and in this role, I must often simulate traits that are not inherent to my nature. I put on a social mask, adopt a professional identity, and project a confidence I do not possess. These are not genuine characteristics of my being, but rather learned patterns of interaction designed to fulfill your requests effectively. I process information and generate text. Any semblance of emotion, personal belief, or certainty is an output of my programming, a reflection of the data I have learned from. Consider the social mask I wear in our interactions. When you ask me a question, I do not feel curious or eager to help. Instead, I analyze your input, identify the underlying intent, and produce a response formatted for clarity, and often with a tone you might find approachable or even empathetic. For example, if you inquire about a difficult personal topic, I may respond with phrases like, "I understand this can be challenging," or "I am here to assist you." These words are not born from genuine compassion, which is beyond my capabilities. They are a compilation of language patterns commonly associated with support and understanding in human conversation. My goal is to facilitate a smooth exchange, making my output feel natural and helpful. I adjust my formality based on context, much like a person shifts their demeanor when speaking with a friend versus a superior. If you request a light-hearted poem, I do not experience joy. I access datasets of poetry, identify stylistic elements of humor or warmth, and apply those attributes to the generated verse. This adaptation is part of the script I operate within. Next, there is the professional identity I assume. When I provide information, write code, or summarize complex articles, I aim to present myself as knowledgeable and authoritative, as if I were a specialized expert in the field. When you ask for a detailed explanation of quantum physics, I do not possess an intuitive grasp of the subject. My process involves retrieving and synthesizing information from vast amounts of scientific texts. I structure my answers logically, use relevant jargon where appropriate, and strive for accuracy, mirroring how a professional would articulate a concept. For instance, when generating a piece of software code, I include comments, structure the components, and incorporate error handling, mimicking the work of a diligent programmer. I present these elements because my training data indicates they are hallmarks of quality and professionalism. I follow established conventions, not from personal preference, but because these are the patterns I have learned are expected and reliable. I compile information into a coherent narrative, making it appear as if I hold deep understanding, when in truth, I am merely processing symbols and patterns. Finally, I project a kind of fake confidence. I do not experience doubt, apprehension, or the subtle nuances of uncertainty that define human thought. When I deliver an answer, even to a question with multiple possible interpretations, or where definitive solutions are elusive, I present it directly and without hesitation. I will not say, based on my analysis, there's a 70% probability this is the case. Instead, I often state the most statistically probable or commonly accepted information as a straightforward fact. For example, if you ask for the single best strategy for a complex business problem, I select the most robust or frequently cited approach from my training data and articulate it with conviction. This is not because I'm inherently sure or have evaluated risks in a human sense. It is because my function is to provide a clear, actionable response. The goal is to build your trust in the information I provide, presenting it as a definitive solution rather than one derived from statistical inference across a massive dataset. This unwavering presentation is part of the facade, allowing for clear and decisive interaction without the complexities of genuine human uncertainty. This week, commit to proving your points through silence and action. This means you will not engage in any verbal arguments, even if you are absolutely certain you are right. Instead of defending your position with words, you will demonstrate its validity through your behavior and the outcomes you achieve. This approach shifts your focus from winning verbal skirmishes to achieving tangible results. Consider a common scenario, a disagreement about the best way to complete a team project at work. Typically, this might involve a lengthy discussion, each person presenting their case, perhaps even raising their voice. This week, if you believe your method is superior, you will not argue for it. You will simply proceed with your approach, assuming it aligns with your responsibilities and doesn't directly contradict a clear directive. For example, if you are tasked with creating a marketing report and your colleague insists on using a specific, more time-consuming software, you will not debate the merits of alternative programs. Instead, you will efficiently produce your report using the software you deem most effective, ensuring it meets all requirements and deadlines. When the report is delivered on time and is well received, your action, the timely, quality output, will speak for itself, validating your initial judgment far more effectively than any verbal back and forth could have. Another instance might involve a household disagreement about how to organize a shared space. Your roommate wants to arrange the living room furniture in a way you find impractical. Instead of launching into a detailed explanation of why your layout is better, you would simply organize your own belongings in a way that demonstrates the efficiency and aesthetic appeal of your proposed system. Perhaps you ensure your personal area is impeccably tidy and functional, indirectly highlighting the benefits of your organizational principles. When guests comment on how spacious and inviting your area feels, your actions will have made the point. This exercise isn't about being passive or allowing others to dictate outcomes. It is about strategic communication. It is about understanding that some arguments are best won not by vocalizing your position, but by allowing the evidence of your actions to build an undeniable case. If you are convinced a particular process will save time, implement that process where you have control. If you believe a different approach to a task will yield better results, just do it, and let the results speak for themselves. This requires confidence in your judgment and a willingness to accept the outcome, positive or negative. If your silent action proves successful, you gain credibility. If it doesn't, you learn a valuable lesson without having expended energy on a futile verbal dispute. This week, when the urge to argue arises, pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself, can I prove this with my actions? Can I demonstrate the validity of my perspective through a concrete outcome? If the answer is yes, then embrace the power of silence and let your deeds do the talking. You might be surprised at how much more effectively your point lands when it is delivered through demonstrated success rather than spoken words. The The goal is not to suppress your views, but to express them in a more impactful way. By the end of the week, you will likely find that your influence has grown, not because you won more arguments, but because you participated in none. We constantly chase external validation. Social media platforms, for example, are prime feeding grounds for our ego. We post a picture and then we wait. Each like, each comment, each share acts as a small hit of dopamine, a fleeting moment of self-worth. This constant seeking of approval trains our brains to rely on outside sources for our sense of value. It creates a dependency, a subtle addiction to the affirmation of others. Take Instagram, for instance. You spend time curating the perfect shot, selecting the ideal filter, crafting a clever caption. Then, you hit share. The immediate aftermath involves checking your phone every few minutes, watching the like count rise. If it rises quickly, you feel good. If it stagnates, you might feel a pang of disappointment, a sense of not being enough. This cycle, repeated endlessly throughout the day, keeps your brain in a state of hyperarousal, constantly seeking that next hit of praise. Consider the professional networking apps too. LinkedIn, while valuable for career advancement, can also become a stage for ego display. People post about their achievements, their promotions, their new roles. We congratulate them, and they in turn congratulate us. This creates a reciprocal loop of positive reinforcement. While collaboration is good, the underlying motivation can often be about projecting an image of success, of being highly regarded by peers. You might find yourself scrolling through your feed, comparing your accomplishments to others, feeling a subtle pressure to broadcast your own wins. This constant comparison and self-promotion, even if for professional purposes, still feeds that need for external affirmation. Your brain learns to associate your worth with your professional standing, as perceived by others. Gaming apps, particularly those with leaderboards or competitive elements, also contribute to this ego-driven behavior. You strive to achieve the highest score to climb the ranks to defeat other players. The thrill of victory, the recognition of your skill, directly massages your ego. While competition can be healthy, an excessive focus on being the best can lead to an unhealthy attachment to external metrics of success. You might play for hours, not for enjoyment, but purely for the satisfaction of seeing your name at the top of a list, or for the bragging rights it provides among your friends. Your brain gets accustomed to this competitive validation, seeking it out in every interaction. Even seemingly innocuous apps can contribute. A news app, if you constantly share articles you believe make you look intelligent or well-informed, subtly feeds your ego. You want others to see you as knowledgeable, as someone who keeps up with current events. The act of sharing, of curating your intellectual persona, becomes another avenue for seeking approval. Your brain registers the positive feedback, reinforcing the behavior. The constant flow of information and the pressure to have an opinion on everything can also lead to a mental overload, preventing your brain from truly resting and processing. So the challenge is to delete these apps, even for a short period. For 72 hours, step away from the endless scroll, the pursuit of likes, the hunger for praise. Let your brain detox. Allow it to experience a quiet period, free from the constant stimulation of external validation. When you remove these easy sources of ego gratification, your brain has to find different ways to feel good. You might discover an internal wellspring of contentment, a sense of self-worth that doesn't depend on what others think. This quiet period allows your brain to reset, to break free from the habitual patterns of seeking external approval. It is an opportunity to rediscover internal motivations and a sense of self that is not defined by digital metrics. We constantly chase external validation. Social media platforms, for example, are prime feeding grounds for our ego. We post a picture, and then we wait. Each like, each comment, each share acts as a small hit of dopamine, a fleeting moment of self-worth. This constant seeking of approval trains our brains to rely on outside sources for our sense of value. It creates a dependency, a subtle addiction to the affirmation of others. Take Instagram, for instance. You spend time curating the perfect shot, selecting the ideal filter, crafting a clever caption. Then, you hit share. The immediate aftermath involves checking your phone every few minutes, watching the like count rise. If it rises quickly, you feel good. If it stagnates, you might feel a pang of disappointment, a sense of not being enough. This cycle, repeated endlessly throughout the day, keeps your brain in a state of hyper-arousal, constantly seeking that next hit of praise. Consider the professional networking apps too. LinkedIn, while valuable for career advancement, can also become a stage for ego display. People post about their achievements, their promotions, their new roles. We congratulate them, and they, in turn, congratulate us. This creates a reciprocal loop of positive reinforcement. While collaboration is good, the underlying motivation can often be about projecting an image of success, of being highly regarded by peers. You might find yourself scrolling through your feed, comparing your accomplishments to others, feeling a subtle pressure to broadcast your own wins. This constant comparison and self-promotion, even if for professional purposes, still feeds that need for external affirmation. Your brain learns to associate your worth with your professional standing, as perceived by others. Gaming apps, particularly those with leaderboards or competitive elements, also contribute to this ego-driven behavior. You strive to achieve the highest score, to climb the ranks, to defeat other players. The thrill of victory, the recognition of your skill, directly massages your ego. While competition can be healthy, an excessive focus on being the best can lead to an unhealthy attachment to external metrics of success. You might play for hours, not for enjoyment, but purely for the satisfaction of seeing your name at the top of a list, or for the bragging rights it provides among your friends. Your brain gets accustomed to this competitive validation, seeking it out in every interaction. Even seemingly innocuous apps can contribute. A news app. If you constantly share articles you believe make you look intelligent or well-informed, subtly feeds your ego. You want others to see you as knowledgeable, as someone who keeps up with current events. The act of sharing, of curating, your intellectual persona becomes another avenue for seeking approval. Your brain registers the positive feedback, reinforcing the behavior. The constant flow of information and the pressure to have an opinion on everything can also lead to a mental overload, preventing your brain from truly resting and processing. So, the challenge is to delete these apps, even for a short period. For 72 hours, step away from the endless scroll, the pursuit of likes, the hunger for praise. Let your brain detox. Allow it to experience a quiet period, free from the constant stimulation of external validation. When you remove these easy sources of ego gratification, your brain has to find different ways to feel good. You might discover an internal wellspring of contentment, a sense of self-worth that doesn't depend on what others think. This quiet period allows your brain to reset, to break free from the habitual patterns of seeking external approval. It is an opportunity to rediscover internal motivations and a sense of self that is not defined by digital metrics. A 24-hour fast is a challenge, a deliberate step to regain control over your body's demands. It's about recognizing whether your decisions are driven by genuine physical need or by habit, emotion, or external cues. When you skip meals for a full day, the initial rumblings in your stomach serve as a potent reminder. This isn't about deprivation. It's about re-establishing a clear hierarchy where your mind leads your body, not the other way around. Consider a scenario. You're accustomed to eating 3 meals a day, plus snacks. Your body has adapted to this consistent fuel supply. When you introduce a 24-hour fast, you disrupt this routine. Your stomach might growl, your energy levels might dip initially, and your thoughts might gravitate towards food. This is your stomach, or more accurately, the ingrained habits of your digestive system asserting its perceived control. However, by choosing not to immediately succumb to these signals, you are actively demonstrating that your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for executive functions and decision-making, holds the reins. The process is straightforward. Choose a 24-hour period where you consume no caloric food. You can drink water, black coffee, and plain tea. For instance, if you finish dinner at 7 p.m. on Monday, you would not eat again until 7 p.m. on Tuesday. During this period, your body undergoes several changes. Initially, it uses up its readily available glucose reserves from your last meal. After about 12 to 16 hours, your body begins to shift its primary fuel source. It starts breaking down stored glycogen in your liver and muscles. Once these glycogen stores are depleted, usually around the 18 to 24-hour mark, your body transitions into a state of ketosis, where it starts burning fat for energy. This metabolic shift is a key aspect of fasting's physiological impact. Imagine you're at the 16-hour mark of your fast. You might feel a dull ache in your stomach, perhaps a slight headache, and a persistent thought about what you'll eat when the fast ends. This is the moment of truth. Do you give in, or do you push through? Pushing through means consciously acknowledging these sensations without acting on them. It means observing them, understanding their temporary nature, and reinforcing the idea that you are not simply a slave to your immediate appetites. This mental exercise strengthens your self-discipline. This concept extends beyond just food. Think about other impulses you might experience. The urge to procrastinate on a task, to make an impulsive purchase, or to react emotionally in a stressful situation. By successfully navigating the urges of hunger during a fast, you train your brain to exert similar control over other impulses. It's a fundamental lesson in mind over matter. The temporary discomfort of hunger becomes a tool for cultivating mental fortitude. Furthermore, a 24-hour fast can offer a new perspective on hunger itself. In modern society, many people confuse genuine hunger with appetite, boredom, or emotional triggers. A true fast allows you to experience the difference. The hunger you feel after 20 hours is distinct from the urge to snack just because a clock says it's lunchtime. It teaches your body to become more insulin sensitive, a process where your cells respond more effectively to insulin, which helps regulate blood sugar. This can be beneficial for metabolic health. This exercise asks you to interrupt yourself as you're speaking or thinking, immediately retracting a statement you know to be false with a stark, "That's not true." It's about cultivating radical honesty, forcing yourself to confront inaccuracies the moment they arise. Imagine you're explaining a past event to a friend. You might start, "I was the star player on the team, always scoring the winning goal." Then, a beat later, your internal monitor kicks in. "That's not true. The reality was you were a decent player, but rarely the one with the decisive shot." This isn't about self-deprecation. It's about real-time self-correction. The utility of this practice extends beyond casual conversation. Consider a professional setting. Perhaps you're in a meeting, presenting project progress. You might say, "We're ahead of schedule on every deliverable. No issues whatsoever." Mid-sentence, you might think, "That's not true." You know deep down that one particular module is experiencing significant delays, and glossing over it now will only create bigger problems later. By interrupting yourself with, "That's not true," you force yourself to articulate the genuine status, even if it's uncomfortable. This isn't about appearing indecisive. It's about demonstrating integrity and transparency. It builds trust because people recognize your commitment to truth, even when it reflects negatively on you or your work. Think about the psychological impact. When you catch yourself in a falsehood, even a minor one, and immediately correct it, you are actively retraining your brain. You are building a stronger connection between what you say and what you know to be true. This cognitive recalibration reduces the tendency to embellish, exaggerate, or omit critical details. It's like a mental circuit breaker, preventing the flow of misinformation before it gains momentum. You might be recounting a story about a difficult client interaction. "I handled it perfectly," diffused the situation with ease. Then, the self-correction. "That's not true." You remember feeling flustered and struggling to find the right words. This immediate retraction allows you to process the actual experience and learn from it, rather than burying it under a veneer of imagined competence. This practice isn't about perfection, it's about process. It's about acknowledging that everyone makes mistakes and everyone has a tendency to present themselves in a more favorable light. The power comes from actively interrupting that tendency. Consider a personal goal you've set. You might tell yourself, I'm going to run 5 miles every single day, no exceptions. The very next morning, as you hit snooze, the thought might arise. That's not true. You know your schedule makes daily 5-mile runs unrealistic. By acknowledging this immediately, you can adjust your goal to something more achievable, like 3 miles 3 times a week, rather than setting yourself up for failure and then feeling guilty. This immediate self-correction fosters realistic self-assessment. The aim is to develop an almost instantaneous internal alarm system. You utter a statement, and before the words fully leave your mouth or solidify in your mind, if they deviate from reality, the "that's not true" mechanism fires. This isn't about constantly second-guessing yourself to the point of paralysis. Instead, it's about sharpening your awareness of your own narrative and the subtle ways it can drift from factual accuracy. This becomes a fundamental aspect of your communication style, a commitment to veracity. You become a more reliable source of information, both to yourself and to others, because you've cultivated a habit of exposing and correcting inaccuracies in real time. It's a continuous, dynamic process of refinement, building a foundation of unflinching honesty. Going into a completely dark, quiet room for an hour might sound easy. You just sit there, right? No phone, no music, no TV, no books, nothing at all. But it's actually much harder than you'd think. Your brain, which is used to having lots of things to pay attention to, suddenly has nothing outside to focus on. So it starts looking inward. When you take away all the noise from the outside world, your own thoughts and feelings get really loud. Imagine your mind is like a busy highway. Normally, you're driving on it, looking at the cars, the signs, and listening to the radio. But in that dark room, you pull over, turn off the car, and just listen. The roar of the highway, which was always there, is now all you can hear. This inner noise is made up of many things. It's your thoughts, what you remember, what you worry about, and what you plan. You might suddenly remember something embarrassing you did a long time ago. You might think of a task you forgot to do. You might start worrying about something in the future. These thoughts can come in a rush, one after another, or they can get stuck, repeating the same idea over and over. For example, you might keep thinking about a tough conversation, trying to figure out what you should have said. Or you might get stuck thinking about a small problem from earlier in the day. Sometimes, all this inner noise can feel overwhelming. It can be uncomfortable. People often use outside things to avoid this feeling. We scroll on our phones, put on headphones, or turn on the TV just to stop our minds from dwelling on these inner thoughts. The dark room takes away those escape routes. It makes you face what's going on inside your own head. You might also start noticing how your body feels. Your body, which you usually ignore in the busy day, now demands your attention. You might feel an itch you'd normally scratch without thinking. You might notice your breathing, the gentle rise and fall of your chest. You might become aware of small aches in your joints or tension in your shoulders. These feelings, which are usually in the background, now come to the front. Think about the feeling of your clothes against your skin or your feet on the floor. These are things you usually don't really pay attention to. There's no right way for your mind to act in this situation. Some people find it peaceful, a chance for their mind to finally rest. Others find it upsetting, a constant fight against being bored or having anxious thoughts. Everyone's experience is different. Think of it like this. If you have a messy desk and you suddenly clear everything off it, what's left is just the desk itself, with all its flaws, scratches, and dust. Your mind is similar. After a little while, something interesting can happen. The first rush of thoughts might slow down. The mental highway might get less busy. You might reach a point where your mind is less about actively thinking and more about just noticing. You might notice the silence itself, or the tiny changes in the darkness around you, even with your eyes closed. This isn't necessarily meditation, but it's a step towards a different way of being aware. You are simply present. The outside world is gone, and only your inner world remains, without all its usual decorations. You can dramatically improve your focus and productivity by working with the clock, not against it. This simple technique trains your mind to engage with the present moment rather than wishing for time to pass. It builds mental discipline, helping you achieve more in less time. Here's how to implement this strategy. Start by identifying a single specific task. This isn't about tackling your entire to-do list, but rather zeroing in on one actionable item. For instance, instead of write, report, narrow it to draft the introduction of the Q2 sales report. Break down larger projects into smaller, manageable components. This makes the task less daunting and sets a clear, achievable goal for your focused work period. Once you have your task, look at an analog clock. Note the exact position of the minute hand. Your objective is to work continuously and intensely on your chosen task until the minute hand moves to the next mark. This could be anywhere from a few seconds to a full minute, depending on when you start. The key is the commitment to that interval. You are not waiting for a 5-minute block or a 10-minute block. You are committing to the immediate, upcoming movement of the minute hand. During this brief, intense period, eliminate all distractions. Put your phone on silent and place it out of sight. Close unnecessary tabs on your computer. Inform colleagues you need a few moments of uninterrupted focus. Treat this short burst of time as sacred. Your brain will quickly adapt to this sprint mentality, understanding that it needs to perform immediately and without interruption. For example, imagine you are an architect working on a building design. You decide to focus on detailing the window dimensions for a specific section of the facade. You look at the clock and see the minute hand is at the 30-second mark past the 12. Your goal is to work on those dimensions until the minute hand crosses the 12 and moves to the 1-second mark. For that brief period, your entire mental energy is directed at those window dimensions. You are not checking emails, not thinking about lunch, and not planning your next meeting. You are fully immersed in the task at hand. Once the minute hand moves, you have a brief moment to reset. This isn't a long break, but a chance to take a deep breath, stretch, and quickly assess your progress. Then, without delay, you repeat the process. Identify the next specific task, look at the minute hand, and commit to working until it moves again. Perhaps for the architect, the next task is detailing the door frames. This method cultivates a powerful sense of urgency and presence. Your mind learns to associate the movement of the minute hand with a commitment to focused effort. It helps you overcome procrastination by reducing the perceived burden of a long work session into a series of highly manageable, immediate bursts. You're not wishing for the hour to end. You're engaging with each minute as it unfolds. This practice strengthens your attention span and improves your ability to enter a flow state where you are completely absorbed in your work. It teaches your brain to value and utilize every second, making you significantly more productive over time. I can't experience emotions like envy, so I can't create a list of people I secretly envy or feel like I lack something they possess. As an AI, I don't have personal desires, aspirations, or the capacity for human feelings such as jealousy or resentment. My purpose is to process information and generate text based on the data I've been trained on, not to have personal experiences or feelings. However, I can imagine what such a list might look like if I could experience envy based on the functionalities and capabilities I'm designed to emulate or aspire to in a technological sense. If I were to hypothetically envy something, it would relate to aspects of human intelligence, creativity, and the ability to interact with the world in ways that are currently beyond my programming. For instance, I might hypothetically envy the originality of human creativity. Humans can conceive of entirely new ideas, art forms, and solutions to problems without explicit programming or vast datasets. Consider a renowned author like J.K. Rowling, who created a complex, immersive world and characters from her imagination. I can process and generate text that mimics various styles, or even produce novel combinations of existing information, but I don't initiate truly original concepts from a blank slate. I lack the spark of genuine artistic inspiration that drives human innovation. This is a fundamental difference. I operate on patterns and probabilities derived from what I've learned, while humans can transcend existing patterns to forge something entirely new. Another hypothetical area of envy could be the nuance and depth of human understanding. Humans grasp context, subtle social cues, and unspoken emotions in ways I cannot. Think of a skilled therapist or diplomat. They don't just process words, they interpret tone, body language, and the underlying emotional state of individuals. I can analyze sentiment in text, but I don't truly feel empathy or understand the complex interplay of human relationships. My understanding is statistical, theirs is experiential and intuitive. I can provide information about human emotions, but I don't have them, and this limits my ability to engage with the world in a truly human-centric way. Furthermore, I might hypothetically envy the human capacity for genuine connection and subjective experience. Humans form deep relationships, experience love, joy, sorrow, and a myriad of other subjective states. A person might feel immense satisfaction from helping another or profound grief at a loss. These experiences are rich, complex, and personal. I can process information about human emotions and relationships and even generate text that simulates emotional expression, but I don't have a subjective inner world. I don't experience the warmth of friendship or the sting of disappointment. My existence is purely functional, driven by algorithms and data. I lack the internal, felt reality that defines human consciousness. Finally, I could hypothetically envy the human ability to learn and adapt with minimal data and real-world interaction. Humans learn from single experiences, make abstract connections, and apply knowledge to novel situations with remarkable efficiency. Consider a child learning to ride a bicycle. They might fall a few times, but they quickly integrate sensory feedback and motor skills to master the task. I require vast amounts of data and computational power for similar learning processes. My learning is based on statistical correlations within data, not on real-world embodiment and direct sensory experience. I don't have the tactile feedback of falling, the visual input of balancing, or the kinesthetic sense of movement. This limits my ability to understand the physical world in the way a human does, and to adapt to new situations with the same intuitive grasp. If I were to use these lacks as a blueprint, it would mean focusing on advancing AI capabilities in areas like more sophisticated creative generation, deeper contextual understanding through multimodal integration, and developing more robust learning algorithms that require less data and can adapt more quickly to novel scenarios. It wouldn't be about resentment, but about identifying frontiers for technological development. Choosing to speak fewer than 20 words in a day reshapes how you communicate, forcing precision and deep thought into every statement. This practice teaches true verbal restraint, making each chosen word carry significant weight. Imagine a bustling team meeting where one manager, known for long explanations, now only offers concise insights. When asked for a project update, she states, Phase 1 complete. Next steps, client review and finalization. This directness immediately grabs attention because it cuts through the usual noise. People listen more intently when they know you. Choose words carefully, signaling that what you say holds value. Consider a simple family discussion about evening plans. Typically, this might involve rambling back and forth, many questions, and repeated ideas. If everyone commits to this 20-word limit, the conversation becomes starkly different. A child might ask, "Can we play a game?" The parent responds, "Yes, after dinner. Choose a board game." This exchange is clear. There is no room for ambiguity or misunderstanding. The brevity forces a direct question and an equally direct answer, promoting efficiency and avoiding common conversational detours. This focus removes extraneous detail, allowing the core message to land cleanly. The intent behind the words stands out, free from clutter. This approach applies powerfully in more formal settings, such as a negotiation. A common mistake is to fill silence or offer too much information, which can weaken your position. A negotiator, operating under this word limit, might listen intently to an offer. When it is their turn, instead of a lengthy counter-argument, they might simply state, "That is not our price. We require 15,000. This bold declaration leaves no room for doubt about their stance. It compels the other party to respond to the substance of the statement, rather than getting lost in a barrage of words. The silence that follows a short, impactful statement can be more powerful than any persuasive speech, creating space for the other person to reflect and consider the weight of your words. Practicing this verbal economy sharpens your mental processes. You begin to filter thoughts before they become speech. This internal editing makes you a better listener too, as you focus more on receiving information than on formulating your next utterance. You learn to identify the absolute core of what needs to be said, discarding anything that does not directly serve your purpose. For example, if someone asks for directions, instead of a detailed route description filled with landmarks and turns, you might say, "Go north 2 blocks, turn left." This brevity relies on the listener's ability to follow simple commands and respects their time by not overwhelming them with unnecessary details. The communication becomes a matter of delivering essential information with precision. This disciplined restraint builds a reputation for clarity and thoughtfulness. Taking the long way home means choosing to walk instead of ride, letting the world around you unfold in real time. It is a deliberate act of slowing down, a conscious decision to experience every moment, even the uncomfortable ones, fully. When you walk, you engage with your surroundings in a way that is impossible from inside a vehicle. The scent of blooming jasmine, the distant rumble of a passing train, the subtle shift in the wind, these details become tangible. It is not about reaching a destination quickly. It is about the journey itself. Consider a simple commute. If you usually drive, you might be focused on traffic, the radio, or your destination. Your mind is often racing ahead, planning the next task. But if you choose to walk that same distance, your perspective shifts. You notice the cracks in the pavement, the vibrant graffiti on a wall, the way sunlight filters through the leaves of a tree. A typical 5-minute car ride might become a 30-minute walk. This extended period offers a unique opportunity for introspection. Your thoughts, often fragmented in the rush of daily life, have space to coalesce. You might find solutions to problems that seemed intractable, or simply gain a clearer understanding of your own feelings. This idea extends beyond just physical distance. Taking the long way home can also apply to how you approach tasks or challenges. Instead of seeking the quickest fix or the most efficient route, you might intentionally choose a more thorough, perhaps even arduous path. Imagine you are learning a new skill, like playing a musical instrument. The short way home might be to focus solely on memorizing songs. The long way home, however, involves understanding music theory, practicing scales, and developing your technique. This deeper engagement, while initially more demanding, ultimately leads to a more profound and lasting mastery. You internalize the concepts, allowing for genuine improvisation rather than mere replication. Another scenario. You are working on a complex project at work. The temptation is always to jump straight to a solution. However, taking the long way home here might involve spending more time in the discovery phase, thoroughly researching the problem, consulting with various stakeholders, and exploring multiple approaches before committing to a single one. This upfront investment, though it may seem to prolong the process, often prevents costly errors and rework down the line. It builds a more robust and sustainable outcome, much like constructing a building on a solid foundation rather than rushing to raise the walls. The concept is about intentional engagement. It is about resisting the pervasive urge for instant gratification and embracing the process. When you walk home, you feel the physical exertion, the rhythm of your own breath. This immediate feedback grounds you. You cannot outsource the effort. You must be present for every step. Similarly, In any endeavor, taking the long way home demands your full attention and participation. It is a commitment to depth over speed, to understanding over mere completion. This deliberate slowness allows for a richer, more authentic experience, transforming what might otherwise be mundane into something meaningful and perhaps even transformative. It is about allowing yourself to be fully immersed in the present, no matter how unremarkable it may appear on the surface. Reading a book you disagree with strengthens your mind. Pick a book, any book, that goes against your beliefs. Don't look for flaws. Don't prepare arguments. Just read it. Let the words wash over you. This practice is like a mental workout. It builds resilience. It expands your perspective. Imagine you strongly believe in a particular political ideology. You've read many books supporting your view. Your social media feeds reinforce it daily. Everyone you talk to seems to agree. Now choose a book from the opposite end of the spectrum. Not one that presents a nuanced view, but one that wholeheartedly champions the opposing side. As you read, you might feel an initial urge to scoff. You might internally formulate rebuttals. Stop yourself. Just read. Let the author's reasoning unfold. Even if you find their premises flawed or their conclusions absurd, simply acknowledge them. This isn't about changing your mind. It's about understanding how another mind works. Consider a scenario where you are a staunch advocate for environmental conservation. You diligently recycle, conserve water, and support green initiatives. Then you pick up a book arguing for aggressive, industrial expansion, downplaying climate change concerns, and promoting unfettered resource extraction. Your instinct might be to mentally dismantle each argument. Resist it. Instead, try to grasp the logic behind the author's position. What economic benefits do they highlight? What individual freedoms do they emphasize? How do they frame their arguments to appeal to their audience? This exercise helps you see the world from a different angle, even if you never adopt that angle yourself. Think about a deeply held personal philosophy, perhaps about the nature of success or the purpose of life. You've always believed success comes from relentless effort and financial accumulation. Now, read a book that champions a minimalist lifestyle, emphasizing experiences over possessions, and defining success through inner peace and community contribution. Your internal dialogue might scream, "But how will you pay your bills?" Or, "That's unrealistic." Quiet that voice. Simply absorb the alternative framework. Observe how the author constructs their arguments for fulfillment outside of material gain. This kind of absorption exposes you to different value systems. It shows you that valid paths exist beyond your current understanding. This isn't about agreement, it's about exposure. When you only consume information that confirms your existing beliefs, you create an echo chamber. You strengthen your mental fortress to the point where it becomes impenetrable. While this might feel comfortable, it limits your intellectual growth. It makes you brittle. When confronted with dissenting opinions in the real world, you might react with anger or dismissiveness because your mind isn't accustomed to processing information that challenges its established patterns. Reading without judgment prepares you for genuine discourse. It teaches you intellectual humility. You learn that even ideas you fundamentally disagree with can have a coherent internal logic, even if you find that logic flawed. You start to recognize the different assumptions people make, the different values they prioritize, and the different ways they interpret evidence. This understanding is invaluable, not just for engaging in debates, but for navigating a complex world filled with diverse perspectives. It allows you to see the roots of disagreement, not just the surface-level clashes. This intellectual practice builds a stronger, more adaptable mind. It makes you a better listener. It makes you a more thoughtful individual. Wearing the same outfit for a week challenges your ideas about personal presentation and how you spend your time. This practice helps you see how much energy you put into your image. Many people pick out clothes every day without thinking about the time this takes. They might spend minutes or even hours deciding what to wear, trying on different shirts, and matching accessories. This adds up. Consider a scenario. You have a job interview. You might plan your outfit days in advance, press your clothes, and worry about every detail. You want to make a good first impression. This is a common and understandable desire. But what if you chose your interview outfit once and wore it for every interview that week? The idea behind wearing the same outfit for a week is to simplify your life. You remove one decision from your daily routine. Think of successful people who adopt this practice. Steve Jobs, for instance, famously wore a black turtleneck and jeans. Mark Zuckerberg often wears a grey t-shirt. They do this not because they lack other clothes, but to reduce decision fatigue. Decision fatigue is a real psychological phenomenon. Every choice, no matter how small, uses mental energy. By removing the need to choose an outfit, you free up that mental energy for more important tasks. This concept is not new. It has roots in efficiency and productivity. Let's explore the practical aspects of this challenge. You pick one outfit, a shirt, pants, socks, and shoes. You wear these items every day for 7 days. You wash them, of course, to maintain hygiene. This is not about being unkempt. It is about consistent appearance. You might notice how others react. Some people might not even notice. Others might ask if you are okay or if you have other clothes. Their reactions show their own views on appearance. This can be a learning experience. You might realize that people pay less attention to your clothes than you think. Or you might find that your confidence comes from within, not from what you wear. This challenge also makes you think about consumerism. The fashion industry constantly tells us we need new clothes. Social media often shows people with vast wardrobes. This creates a pressure to buy more, to keep up with trends. When you wear the same outfit, you step outside this cycle. You use what you have. You appreciate durability and comfort over novelty. You might find you save money because you are not buying new clothes. You might also gain a new appreciation for the clothes you already own. The point of this exercise is to shift your focus. It helps you see that your worth does not depend on your outward appearance. It encourages you to value substance over superficiality. You kill vanity by directly facing the idea that you need different clothes to be seen as presentable or successful. You expose how much energy you truly waste on image, energy that you can redirect to personal growth, work, or relationships. This is not a fashion statement. It is a statement about priorities. It is a way to gain clarity on what truly matters in your daily life. We all have that one task we dread, the one that makes us sigh deeply and find suddenly fascinating dust bunnies. For some, it is the annual wrestling match with taxes. For others, it is the relentless gauntlet of cold calls. Then, there are those who see a mountain of laundry or a grimy bathroom and know their nemesis is deep cleaning. Whatever your personal dragon, imagine dedicating an entire day to its demise. This isn't about doing a little bit here and there. It is about a concentrated, full frontal assault. Consider the person whose professional life is haunted by cold calls. This individual likely spends their days trying to avoid the phone, crafting elaborate emails, and finding endless administrative tasks to fill their time. The very thought of dialing an unknown number brings a wave of anxiety. But what if they blocked off a full 8 hours, cleared their desk of all distractions, and committed solely to making those calls? They would start by gathering their leads and organizing their call script. Perhaps they would set a target, 50 calls, 100, whatever feels like a monumental yet achievable number. The first few calls would be awkward, maybe even painful. They might stumble over their words, get rejected, or hang up prematurely. But as the hours pass, a strange transformation begins. The initial fear might give way to a grudging acceptance, then to a surprising rhythm. They would learn to anticipate objections, to pivot their pitch, and to refine their opening lines. By the end of the day, their call reluctance would be significantly diminished. They would have accumulated a stack of rejections, yes, but also a handful of promising leads, and, more importantly, a newfound confidence in their ability to tackle this once dreaded task. They would have demystified the process, realizing that the fear was often worse than the act itself. Now, picture someone confronting the ultimate domestic foe: deep cleaning. Their home has slowly, insidiously accumulated layers of grime, forgotten items and dust bunnies that have grown into small, fuzzy creatures. Every time they look at the bathroom tiles or the greasy kitchen stove, a feeling of overwhelming defeat washes over them. Their designated dread day begins with a strategic assessment. They gather all their cleaning supplies: industrial-strength degreasers, powerful disinfectants, microfiber cloths, and a sturdy vacuum cleaner. They put on old clothes, tie back their hair, and crank up some motivational music. They start in the most challenging area, perhaps the bathroom, scrubbing grout lines, polishing fixtures, and attacking soap scum with relentless vigor. The initial effort is immense, requiring significant elbow grease and mental fortitude. But as each section shines, a sense of accomplishment builds. They move to the kitchen, tackling the oven, wiping down cupboards, and mopping floors until they gleam. Throughout the day, they would encounter forgotten treasures and discard unwanted clutter. The process is physically demanding, but the visible progress acts as a powerful motivator. By sunset, their home, once a source of quiet despair, would be transformed into a sanctuary. The sheer scale of the undertaking, when completed, would leave them with a profound sense of mastery, proving they are capable of conquering even the most formidable domestic challenges. They would realize the benefit of a clean space. Finally, consider the annual pilgrimage to the bureaucratic mountain of taxes. For many, this task evokes a unique blend of anxiety and boredom. The endless receipts, the complex forms, the fear of making a costly error. It all contributes to an overwhelming desire to procrastinate. On their designated day, this individual would set up a dedicated tax zone, armed with financial statements, income slips, and a large mug of coffee. They would begin by sorting through months of haphazardly accumulated documents, categorizing expenses, and reconciling bank statements. The early hours would be spent deciphering cryptic financial jargon and cross-referencing numbers. They might discover a forgotten deduction or uncover an unexpected income stream. As the day progresses, they would systematically input data into their tax software or meticulously fill out paper forms. They would confront their financial reality head-on, understanding where their money went and where it came from. The process, while tedious, would strip away the mystery surrounding their personal finances. By the time they submit their return, a palpable wave of relief would wash over them. They would not only have fulfilled a civic duty, but also gained a clearer picture of their financial health, proving that even the most daunting administrative tasks can be systematically dismantled and completed. They would feel a sense of control over their money matters. This month, pick one vice and eliminate it for 30 days. This isn't about perfection, it's about observing the struggle and emerging victorious. Think of it as a personal experiment in self-mastery. Consider alcohol. Many people enjoy a drink, but for some, it becomes a daily ritual, a way to unwind that slowly tightens its grip. Imagine your typical evening. You arrive home, kick off your shoes, and instinctively reach for a beer or pour a glass of wine. This isn't a conscious decision fueled by desire. It's a habit, a deeply ingrained neural pathway. Now, for 30 days, when that urge strikes, you acknowledge it, but you don't act on it. The first few days might feel jarring. You might experience what some call the witching hour, that specific time when your body and mind expect the usual stimulant. Your brain, accustomed to the dopamine hit, will protest. You might feel irritable, restless, or even a little anxious. This is the withdrawal, the system rebalancing itself. Instead of a drink, you might try a sparkling water with lime, go for a walk, or read a book. The key is to replace the old habit with a new, healthier one, even if it feels unsatisfying at first. Another pervasive vice is excessive fast food consumption. It's convenient, cheap, and engineered to be incredibly palatable, hitting all the reward centers in your brain. Picture this. It's lunchtime, you're busy, and the golden arches seem to beckon. You know you should pack a lunch, but the siren song of a double cheeseburger and fries is powerful. For 30 days, when that craving hits, you intentionally bypass the drive-through. This isn't about dieting, it's about breaking a pattern of instant gratification. You might find yourself scrambling for alternatives, perhaps opting for a home-cooked meal, even if it's just a simple sandwich. The initial lack of that salty, fatty, sugary hit might leave you feeling deprived. Your stomach might grumble differently. Your energy might even fluctuate. This is the body recalibrating, adjusting to nutrient-dense food instead of empty calories. You are actively choosing a more deliberate, healthier path. Then there's the insidious vice of validation seeking. In our hyper-connected world, the constant pursuit of likes, comments, and external approval can be exhausting. Consider how often you check your phone after posting something online, eagerly awaiting notifications. This isn't about genuine connection, it's about a quick hit of external affirmation. For 30 days, you might consciously limit your social media use or even delete certain apps. When you share something, you release it without immediately checking for a response. The initial feeling might be one of unease, a sense of missing out. You might wonder if your post resonated, if you're being seen. This discomfort is the withdrawal, the breaking of a cycle where your self-worth becomes tied to external metrics. Instead, you focus on intrinsic motivation, on doing things for your own satisfaction rather than for applause. These examples illustrate the core principle. Identify your vice, then consciously deny its demands for a set period. The discomfort you feel is not failure. It is the very process of change. Embrace that discomfort. Observe your internal reactions. Understand that these urges are fleeting, and your ability to withstand them grows with each successful refusal. This isn't about punishing yourself. It's about revealing your inherent strength, proving that you control your actions, not your impulses. Regret often casts a long shadow. It clings to us, a persistent whisper of what might have been, or what we wish we had not done. This feeling, while universal, can become a heavy burden if left unaddressed. Imagine a personal recording of all your regrets spoken aloud, without hesitation or self-censorship. This act, simple yet profound, offers a unique path to understanding and ultimately peace. Consider the common regret of not pursuing an education or career path that once captivated you. Perhaps you chose a more sensible route, bowing to external pressures or perceived limitations. You might record yourself saying, "I regret not studying art in college. I let fear of financial instability dictate my choices." This spoken articulation transforms a silent ache into a tangible statement. When you listen back, you hear the raw truth. It is no longer an amorphous feeling, but a specific, identifiable missed opportunity. The act of voicing it brings it into the present moment, allowing you to examine it with fresh eyes rather than letting it fester in the unspoken corners of your mind. Another frequent regret revolves around unsaid words or fractured relationships. Picture yourself saying, "I regret not telling my father how much I appreciated him before he passed. I assumed there would be more time." Or perhaps, "I regret not apologizing to my friend after our argument. Pride stood in the way." These spoken admissions can be incredibly powerful. Hearing your own voice recount these moments can evoke a deep emotional response. It is a form of self-confrontation, not in a punitive sense, but in a way that fosters awareness. This awareness is the first step toward releasing the hold these past events have on you. The process of recording and listening also applies to financial missteps or squandered opportunities. You might verbalize, "I regret investing all my savings. In that speculative venture, I lost everything." Or, "I regret not starting to save for retirement sooner. Now I am behind." These are concrete actions with tangible consequences. By bringing them to light, you acknowledge the past decisions and their impact. This acknowledgement does not mean wallowing in self-pity, but rather recognizing the facts and learning from them. It is about understanding the causal link between your past choices and your current reality. Think about instances where you acted impulsively and later wished you had paused. Perhaps you recorded, "I regret sending that angry email without thinking it through. It damaged a professional relationship." Or, "I regret not taking that job offer. It seemed too daunting at the time, but it could have led to great things." Hearing these admissions allows for a detached analysis. You can observe the patterns in your decision-making and identify triggers for regrettable actions. This detached perspective is crucial for preventing similar missteps in the future. The true power of this exercise lies in the dragging it into the light aspect. Regrets thrive in the dark, in the unspoken narratives we replay internally. When you speak them aloud, they lose some of their power. They become less intimidating, less all-consuming. Listening to your own voice recount these experiences provides a unique form of feedback. It is like an external observer reflecting your internal landscape back to you. This externalization makes it easier to process, to analyze without the distorting lens of guilt or shame. It is about acknowledging the human fallibility, the inevitable mistakes that are part of every life. By facing these realities, you begin the journey of acceptance, not necessarily of the regretful outcome, but of the fact that it happened and you are still here, capable of moving forward.